All right. Hello, everyone. Good Vach. How you doing? If anyone that happens to be coming around and has any questions, let me know. I'm here.
No wonder Trump treated Zelensky like trash. He made 3 fatal mistakes in the White House.
Leaving film right, how may I approve? I think that.
Hello. Thank you for joining the chat. This is Saturday Night Questions. How do I switch my background? I forgot how to do this. I used to be able to do this. Here we go. That's me, but where is the... Oh, here we go. Finally. Where's my... La 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 la. Shalom, Shavuot Tov. Have any questions? Just passing through. Any questions on the Parsha? MT Media, did you learn the Parsha this week? Okay, let's see. All right. This is as good as background as any. Oh my gosh, I just turned around. So dumb. So dumb. Technical difficulties. Here we go. All right, here we go. There we go. Now we got something cooking. All right. Now we're cooking. And now we're cooking. All right, let's see. Better. Maybe it should be coming from this angle. First of all, put this here. Yeah, this is good. This is perfect. This is perfect. All right. Say right questions. Do you have any questions out there? Anyone passing by wanted to ask a rabbi? Oh my gosh, what about usually I get these questions. What about Isaiah 7:14? What about Daniel? Anyone out there want to ask any questions? Jews, why do you wear yarmulkes? Why do you wear those little hats? Why do you pray so often? Any questions? We are here for you. Meanwhile, I'm writing my perm spiel. Personal. Going to write my perm spiel. Purim is coming up. Purim is a holiday. It's from the Book of Esther. It happened in the Persian territories by King Achashverosh. I don't know how to pronounce him in English. How do you say Achashverosh in the secular? Thanks for the guys who are joining right now. How do you say Achashverosh in the secular? I don't know how to say it. Achashverosh. Gotta look that up. Achashverosh. I know how to say it as in the Hebrew. How to pronounce Achashverosh in the secular. In English. What do you call it? What's Achashverosh in? Really? Hazar? What?
In the Hebrew Bible, Ahasuerus.
Ahasuerus? That's what you guys call him, Ahasuerus?
Ahasuerus.
Ahasuerus? Is that what the name is? Is Ahasuerus the name in Esther? That's what you guys use? Ahasuerus? That's interesting. Ahasuerus. It sounds like I had some or looking for some coleslaw or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's how it is. Saturday night, we're not at the clubs. We're not ruining our lives. It's no longer the time. I remember it used to be Saturday night. Even the radio used to play all the stuff. Go to the clubs, dance all night, come home, all disappointed, repeat next weekend. That's life is not there anymore. Now I have a better life. Now we're on social media all day long. Flip, 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 screen, 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 flip, 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 screen, screen, screen. All right, I'm here to hopefully there's some substance that we could do, that we could talk about. If anyone has any questions. There's a trivia question here for those who follow the Bible a little bit. When God gives instructions to Moses about the tabernacle, he leaves one very important piece out. And the question is, which piece does he leave out and why? Obviously, we learn about that piece later, but all the way at the end, why was that piece not spoken about in the beginning? Was it an oversight, or was there a reason why it wasn't told right in the beginning? Hello, all the people who joined. All right, we got a whole bunch of people joining right now. We're on fire. I don't see anyone interacting. Just passing through. Hi, Renita. Hi, Guli Van 12. How you guys doing? Thanks for coming in. All right, let's see. Where am I looking for? I'm looking for my writing. Purim. You guys know about Purim? Purim coming up. Purim is it's like the Jewish Halloween, but it's sort of like a converse of Halloween, where Halloween, the kids go trick-or-treating and ask for candy, and they dress up like ghoulish stuff. And Purim, we try to dress up like happy things, like clowns, like funny things, our favorite movie. And we actually give out candy. We go to houses and we actually give out candy. Send all the kids to go give out little packages of goodies to all our neighbors and friends. Don't expect anything in return. It's all about the giving. Why? Because the Book of Esther said we're so excited that to try to kill us, they failed. We eat, and we give out money to the poor, and we give out goodies to our friends. We try to come together. It's a time of coming together. It's interesting that of all the holidays, that one was never taken by our Christian brothers and sisters. I mean, we have Pentecost. That was taken, right? Shavuos. We got Passover, so you guys got Easter. So our brothers and sisters got Easter, right? All right, we got a lot of people joining us now. We're on fire a little bit over here. Um, what about a harvest festival? Do Christians celebrate any harvest festivals? That I'm not aware of in all my readings. I don't know. I don't know if that was ever, but anyway, we have Purim. So Purim's coming up 2 weeks. We got Purim. You're gonna see if anyone lives in a neighborhood or close to a neighborhood that has Jewish people in it. There's gonna be lots of celebrating with the costumes and lots of traffic. It's very frustrating day for Jews. Also, lots of traffic. They go, oh my gosh, tons of traffic that day because everyone's out and about having to give out stuff. Daniel Womack, welcome. Lily Kim, Shell, New York. Am I getting messages that I'm not seeing? No, I don't think so. I don't see any messages. Hayadat Sayed. It's interesting. Where are you from, Sayed? Where's that name? That sounds like an Arabic name. Or is that an Indian name? I guess we did last time. That we did is shoes. So in the tabernacle, as we read this week's portion of the Bible, you know that Orthodox Jews read a portion of the Bible every single week. Only the 5 books of Moses, and then then we have a little portion of the rest of the books. The rest of the books is called the writings and the prophets. So, discussing in Exodus, God gave the instructions for the tabernacle. One thing was missing from the tabernacle when God gave the initial instructions. Anyone know what that missing thing was? And the question is, why was it missing and why was it left to the end? Special little point. Oh my, this is getting a little ridiculous. Okay. We have Queen of Ballast. Is that what it says? Queen of Ballast drawing? Well, welcome. Thank you so much. Whoa. Almost lost me for a second. The Kior. That's actually a good one. We got out there for the Kior. The Kior is not it. That's not correct. That's not what was missing. That's a good one. The Kior wasn't, while it was important, obviously they had to wash, but it wasn't one of the main things in the Mishkan. Something more important, something much more focal than that was missing. That was missing from the instruction. Something that's much more, when you see that it was missing, it's much more glaring. It's like, whoa, the room looks empty. That's a little hint. The room looks empty. Leviticus. That's what was missed. What was missed? You said Queen of Palestine. You said the key, or is that what you're saying? That was missed? I just said it says Leviticus. That was missed. I'm not sure I understand. Sorry. Let me see something here. Interact. Yeah, what's up? Good night.
I don't know if you mentioned money, but whatever you did.
1 second. I'm on a video, so I don't think you want to get on it. What's up?
I don't know you mentioned money, but we do need the big car.
I said I'm on a video. You want to be on the live video?
No.
So why keep coming closer? Smart. You need the big car.
Huh? Yeah. Can I?
All right, I think we have a winner. 1 second. Here we go. Sorry, I was on mute for a second. That's right. We got a winner. The altar of incense. That's right. That was what was missing. So we have different parts of the tabernacle. We have what's called the Kodesh, the holies, and we have the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies. And the Holy of Holies was the Ark. The only thing that was there was the Ark with the cherubim on top. Then you have the holies, and the holies had the menorah, it had the candelabra, it had the table, it's called the shulchan, and then it also had to have the mizbeach ketores. But when talking about the tabernacle, it went through the ark, and it went through the shulchan, and it went through the candelabra, and it even went through all the layers that were covering, and the poles, and the beams, and the sockets, and the outside altar, and the outside ramp, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But for some reason, it left out the altar of incense, called the Mizbeach HaKetores, or the Mizbeach HaNechoshes, because made out of copper and Nechoshes. That was left out. So why was that left out? Do you know why that was left out? That's a very important answer why it was left out. I'm sure there's many answers. I'd like to hear your answer. If you have an answer why you think it was left out in the beginning. If you say it's an oversight, come on, don't say it's an oversight. That's a simple answer. That's too simple for you guys. You guys are much smarter than that. Oh, 1 second. Some guy wants to be invited. It says, invite Donuts for All to join live as a guest. Donuts for All. You want to be, was that a request to be a guest? I'm sorry, I'm new at this live thing. I apologize. Or you're just a special guy who likes to talk to people. I'm not sure. All right, we'll invite you. There we go. Now you got invited. I don't know how to invite you. I'm trying to press invite. It's not going. Bad technology. Bad screen. Some comments in this live were filtered to protect the community's experience. That's not nice. You guys are being naughty. Don't be naughty. Be nice. Don't just make fun of Jews. Try to interact nicely with them, because despite your best efforts, Jews are still around. I know that it's been a 2,000-year campaign for the world to get rid of Jews, but we're still here, so you gotta live. At one point, insanity is basically doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. At one point, you just gotta realize you're gonna live with us in the same world as you and just accept it. I don't understand, why this anti-Semitism just keeps going forever and ever and ever. It's about time people realize we're gonna be here. We're still here. Okay, I mean, we make up a tiny percentage of the world. We're basically out of the way. Okay, we're less than 1% of the entire world population. We're tucked into little corners over here. You don't like us? Okay, go to India. You're not going to find many Jews in India. Go to China. Okay, go to Siberia. Okay, we're not going to find many Jews in Siberia. You would have found us there during the World War II, but we're not there anymore. Okay, we were there in camps in World War II, but we left Siberia. So go ahead, enjoy Siberia, and you will be Jew free. Okay. So don't put these bad comments on my live or on my TikTok, and we're not interested in hearing it about how terrible Jews are. It's old, it's boring. Come up with something new. Anyway, back to the altar of incense. Anyone have an idea of why the altar was not there? Or any other questions? You can ask any question you want. This is open forum, open mic night. Oh, here we go. Donuts for all. For some reason, it's asking me to invite you. So how do I invite you? Turn commenting on or off. Manage cameras. I have to take a tutorial on this stuff to learn how to get guests on here. I think it would be a lot more interesting if there was guests on here or something. Anyway, which we're doing fiddle on the roof. Oh, okay. Invite. This guy wants to be invited. How do we invite? Invite public Artemy to join live as a guest. Oh, add guest. Here we go. Oh. Oh, there we go. Invite them as a guest. There we go. Oh, but he's not here anymore. Okay, I figured it out. Got it. If you want to be a guest, what are we? Zafar Khan invited me to co-host with two other guests. Okay, question. Who's I ordained by? That's a great question. So there is a program here where there's a 3 rabbi contingent. I can't name the rabbis because it's social media. I'm not going to just start putting names on social media out to the whole public. But where I live, there are 3 very, very renowned Orthodox rabbis. One runs the entire yeshiva, and he also runs a shul. The other one is a menahel in the yeshiva, or a principal in the yeshiva, and he runs a shul. And the third one also is a Rebbe in the yeshiva, and he is a rabbi of a shul. Those 3 put a program together, and they put what's called a smicha program together, where we had to learn halachas. We learned halachas in Shabbos, Saturday, and Sabbath, all the laws of Sabbath. We learned all the laws in what's called Yora Yora, which is all the laws of kashrus, which is milk and meat together, which is how to properly salt meat and butcher meat, and also different mixtures of meat and different mixtures that happen inside of pots and pans, and how to keep a kosher kitchen. So all those laws we were taught and we were tested on, and after a 6-year program, we were ordained. We had to kneel in front of them. They had a sword on our shoulder. Just kidding. No kneeling, no sword, but yes, we were ordained. So that was the program, a 6-year program. doing this. And of course, obviously, studying since a little, but in my adulthood, really, really just studying, reading, and studying and learning and coming up with my own commentaries and teaching classes and putting stuff out there. What is this? Accept. Let me see what's going on here. Whoa, where am I now? I'm like blasted somewhere else. Hello. How do I go back to my... This is part of my life also. Did I grab all my followers here? Or are we just staring at each other? Okay, that was strange. A strange experience being ported elsewhere, and people are staring at you. Do people do that? They just invite you to join something, and then all of a sudden they just stare at you. Strange. All right, where were we? Altar of incense is left out. Something very, very amazing about that. You know that the first person to do the service in the tabernacle was Moses. Moses was told to dedicate the tabernacle. It was going to be a 7-day period, and he was going to teach Aaron and his sons how to do the service. So God taught Moses how to do the service, and Moses was going to teach Aaron and his sons how to do the service. There were two things that only Aaron and his sons ever were able to do, and Moses was not able to do. And to clarify this, the Torah had to leave something very important out of the building of the tabernacle, and that was the altar of incense, because there are two things that only priests, Kohanim, sons of Aaron, were able to do, and that was to serve the incense, to serve the ketores, to light that twice a day with the Tamid offering. It was done in the morning, done in the afternoon, with what's called the eternal or continual offering, where there was a lamb offered, and then there was burning of incense, and then in the evening again a lamb offered and burning of incense. And the other one was lighting the menorah. The only two things that Kohanim were allowed to do. So it does not make it clear in Exodus 40 exactly who's doing what. But for the most part, Moses himself was the one who set up the entire tabernacle, and he set it up, and he also started doing the service, and he anointed Aaron and his sons. However, the only service that he did not do was the burning of the incense and lighting of the menorah, and that's why those two things were left out. The menorah was taught to Moses, and Moses learned how to do the menorah. However, what was left out about the menorah was asking people to donate the items. In the beginning of the section, Parshas Truma, or the Parsha of the segment, it talks about all the things that were needed to build the tabernacle. The one thing it did not ask for was the items used to light the menorah. Interesting, it asked for the ingredients of the ketores, of the incense. That it did ask for, but it did not ask for the oils and the wicks and that stuff. Yet, when building the tabernacle, it did not say about building the altar for incense, but it did say about building the menorah. So we got the ingredients for the incense, but not the place to put it. We got the place to light the candelabra, but not the ingredient, not the it was necessary to light the candelabra. Those were set to the end because only. Oh, sorry, this is my. I'm part of the volunteer ambulance organization. So hold on a second. Nope, not around here. Anyway, only so those two things were only for the priest to do, and that is shown by the leaving that part out. And then the Torah continues with instruction, and it talks about the incense, and it talks about the lighting of the menorah. Something extra interesting about the candelabra in the tabernacle. When the original testament or the Torah talks about lighting the lighting the candelabra for the tabernacle, it never uses the word to light. It doesn't use the word lahadlik, to light. It does not use that word ever. If you look in the original Hebrew, it never uses the word light, like to lahadlik, to light. It would talk about the altar, and it says make a fire and make it burn and make it smoke and all the other stuff. When it talks about the candelabra, it never says light it. It says make the lights go up. Lahalos esaneros. Make the lights go up. It's unbelievable because fire is the most spiritual thing we have on earth because you could see it, but there's really no substance to it, right? Fire is something unbelievable. There is something spiritual to it and also something physical to it. You could see it, right? But there is no substance to it. It's basically just heat. Therefore, when it came to the tabernacle and lighting the candelabra for light, this was a connection of the spiritual and the physical. And therefore, it wasn't mankind that lights it, makes the fire, because then we say, okay, this is a physical thing and mankind is lighting the lights. No, it was a spiritual light that had to be performed by the priest, and the priest merely had to make it go up. We need, because God doesn't want to do everything by itself. God wants man involved in everyday creation. So therefore, God made it that the lights go up. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Anyway, I mean, learning it, I was like, wow, look at this. I mean, little thing you get by reading. I encourage everyone out there who never reads in the original Hebrew, talk to someone who reads the original Hebrew, and maybe one day also learn the original Hebrew by yourself, because it's unbelievable. You could read a translation of a translation of a translation of a translation, and you get a 50 priests tell you that this is the right translation. But when you look at the actual words, the beauty in the words that are there, and the lessons you can learn by inferring different lessons of how it doesn't, the way it says things, the way it doesn't say things. Anyway, this is why I personally dedicate my life to learning, because I think it's fantastic. Like Trump would say, fantastic. Not a Trump fan, or yes, a Trump fan. The bottom line is, everyone knows this. Everyone knows. He says, fantastic. I don't do impressions. I mean, I do impressions. I used to be a comedian. I'm a little bit of a comedian, but rabbi comedian. But Trump is not one of them. I don't do a Trump impression. That's for sure. Shalom. That's right. This week's parsha. That's right. Mr. Gardner, I agree with you. Yes. Yes, I got a comment. The oral Torah is important. True, the oral Torah is important. Let me explain why the oral Torah is important for those who don't understand. We have a Talmud. So the question is, what is in the Talmud? The Talmud is very simplified. People look at Talmud and say oral Torah. But the Talmud is so much more than the oral Torah. The Talmud contains three things. There are three very important things the Talmud contains. First, it contains an exegesis. Whoa, that's a fancy word, okay? Rabbi, slow your hole. Not everyone reads the art scroll. Okay, not everyone speaks fancy English. I understand. Exegesis. Exegesis means trying to get meaning out of words. So it doesn't just mean translation. Anyone can translate. Omar, he said. Okay, bam, translate. Exegesis means taking verses together and finding out what they mean. In other words, if you have in one verse where it says something generic, and then you have another verse where it talks about the same topic, but it talks about something specific, so there's an exegesis you could learn. You could learn that based on the generic, that in this category it talked about generic, But in this category, I talked about specific. So we learn out that this category, only the minute details work out, but in the other category, general things work out. Okay, I'll give you an example. We have laws of ritual purity and we have laws of the Sabbath. And the question is, what happens if someone violates those laws? If I, let's say, wake up drunk, okay, or wake up sleepy and I'm not really thinking, and I don't realize that today's Sabbath. I woke up, I wake up on a Saturday morning and I don't realize it's Sabbath because I woke up. So before I get wits about me, I I slam down my alarm clock. Let's say I had an alarm clock. I slam down my alarm clock. I wake up. I flip on the lights. I go to the bathroom, turn on the hot water. Then I all of a sudden realize, whoa, today is Sabbath. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot today is Sabbath. I didn't realize I woke up. I thought today was like Friday. People do that. You wake up and you don't realize what day it is. The question is, how many violations did I do? And before you say, 1 second, Rabbi, everything was accidental, right? But in Judaism, even accidental things have to have forgiveness for them, because if you do it, you do it. So yes, it was accidental, and yes, it's a very small amount of sin because accidental, but the bottom line is, if I did something accidental, I still have to confess over it. That's what Judaism is. We don't just get a savior who died for our sins. It just doesn't have, that's not what we get. We don't get that. Unfortunately, we don't have that. Do I envy you guys? No, but I'm just saying we don't have that. Okay? We have that. We have personal responsibility. We do something, we gotta fess up to it. So I wake up, don't realize that it's Saturday. I turn the lights, I turn off my radio, and I flip on the hot water. Okay? Let's not argue whether or not electricity is considered what electricity is regarding a rabbinical law, a biblical law. Let's not argue that. Let's just assume those are violations of the Sabbath. Okay, how many did I violate? I violated 3. How many do I have to give a sin offering for? How many do I have to confess for? So we learn out that based on the way the verses are in the Torah talking about Sabbath, and based on how they're talking about the level of the ritual impurity, that when it comes to impurity, every single one you have to atone for. For instance, if I touched a dead rat, and then I touched a dead body, and then I went onto the Temple Mount, right? So I gotta, and then I gotta, or I touched the Torah, I touched a holy thing. So each of those is a violation, right? So, but that talked about specific generally, but by Sabbath talking specifically. So therefore, Sabbath, we learn out that in one unawareness. So therefore, I only violated 1. Now, I would not know that per se by just looking at the Torah, because I'm not that smart. It would take me a very long time to go through the entire Torah and learn until I figured that out for myself. It's there. Once it was pointed out to me, I see it. But for me, myself, to just learn it on my own, to get to my own conclusion, it would have taken me a very long time, many years. The Talmud saves me the trouble. Hundreds of rabbis over thousands of years. Okay, Talmud wasn't written over thousands of years. It was written over several centuries. So hundreds of rabbis over hundreds of years learned and came to these conclusions. And now I don't have to do it for myself because I see they pointed out for me. That's exegesis. That's number one that the Torah does. The first thing it does is it says there's so much more in the Torah than just God created the earth. It's not just thou shalt not have this ox kill another person. You have to understand, what does it mean you're ox killing another person? Was it the first time it gored? Was it the 4th time it gored? These things we wouldn't know unless we really delved in every single day. And it can take a lifetime, and thank God it doesn't have to take my lifetime. Hundreds of rabbis over hundreds of years figured this out. And by the way, there has been not a single document in history that has been more peer-reviewed than the Talmud. I know people say, oh, the Talmud. The Talmud is the most peer-reviewed document in the world, because over centuries, hundreds and hundreds of scholars debated this over millions of hours, and they came to the conclusion, and what was written down there And after that, you had another 11, 1,200 years of thousands upon thousands of scholars reviewing it and correcting the text and making sure the text is correct and making sure it said made sense and making sure what it learned out we learned out. That the bottom line is, we are in history. We can appreciate the most peer-reviewed piece of document in history. Okay. That's the first thing that the Talmud does, and people don't understand that power. The second thing is, it gives you rabbinical laws. There are a lot of laws that the rabbis did make up. There was a Sanhedrin that used to be called an Anshe Knesset Hagadola, the men of great assembly, and I know Tumah is not the same as Chet, but there are sins. There are sins, like I said, that are connected to being Tumah. Like I said, going onto Temple Mount while being Tummy, touching the Sefer Torah while being Tummy. You're right. Tummy in and of itself is not a Chet. That's true. It's not a sin. But like I said, there in the laws of Tumah Tahara, there are ways of violating. For instance, you can't be with a woman who's impure. So being with her, that's really what I mean. I don't want to have to say it, but now let's talk about it. Let's be adults about this, okay? There are rules. A woman is impure. She sees her menstrual blood. You can't be with her. The question is, if you were with her 5 times during her same period, the question is, how many violations is that? Okay, boom. Now we got how there are sins with Tumah. Okay, we were ripped it open, explicit. Anyway. The bottom line is, where was I going? There are rabbinical laws. Now, the rabbinical laws, there was a Sanhedrin, and there was a men of great assembly, and there was a men of the great court in the Second Temple period, and they decided that they're going to enact laws for the people of Israel, then Judeans, because really the only people left in the Second Temple era basically were the Judeans from Yehuda, and there was the priests, and there were some they said some from Benjamin, some from Ephraim, whatever, not many other. Basically, Levites, and there were the from Judah. Anyway, so they created these laws because they didn't want people to violate the Torah. No, I'm not Chabad. That's a great question. I am not Chabad, and I'll tell you the big difference between me and Chabad. There's a huge difference, and it's not that I put on the phylacteries to film the Chalamod and they don't. That's not the big difference between me and Chabad. That they don't put on film every day of the year, and I know people, and I'll put on Chalamod, which means intermediate days of the holidays. No, that's not. No, I'm not Chabad because I do not ascribe at all to the Zohar. So there's a huge difference between Hasidus and where I come from a much more Germanic line of rabbis, and that is, we do not ascribe whatsoever to the Zohar. We did not give the Zohar any bit of a halachic authority, Jewish law authority over us. Let's make it simple. That's it. That's really the only difference. Otherwise, we all keep the Torah the best we can. We all try to make the world a better place. Boom. Love Chabad. I actually met the Rabbi when I was very, very little. My grandmother lived in Crown Heights. She took me to see the Rebbe. Most great experience of my life. I don't really remember it. I was too young. But anyway, fantastic. So, number one is the Talmud gives us exegesis. It tells us things about laws that we would not have thought of ourselves. Second thing is, it gives rabbinical laws. The rabbis did not want those who follow the Torah to come too close to sin. So therefore, the rabbis made laws to protect us from sin. For instance, an easy one is a Sabbath. Sabbath really starts when there are 3 stars. When it's night, that's when the day starts. The day really starts when there are 3 stars, and it's nighttime, and that's when the Jewish day starts. For those who understand it, who are Christian, the way I understand it is Easter, Christmas. Christmas, right? You all start Christmas also on the eve of Christmas. Christmas is the one day of year where you guys actually start basically like a Jewish holiday, where you start the night before. So in the Jewish law, the day really starts at night. So therefore, Sabbath starts Friday night. It really starts by 3 stars. However, the rabbis wanted to make sure people would go away from sin. They said that by sundown, done. By sundown is when you start Sabbath, because what's going to happen is if you continue doing the regular work after sundown, how close are you going to get to 3 stars? How close are you going to get to the start of Sabbath? You might actually then violate Sabbath. So to make sure you don't violate Sabbath, the rabbi said sundown, boom. That's an example of rabbinical law. And that's also what the Talmud says. The third thing the Talmud gives is what's called laws, the oral law. Now, everyone says the Talmud is the oral law, but that's an oversimplification. Again, the oral law really is things that Moses brought down but did not write in the Torah itself because it was too cumbersome. For instance, let me give you a very perfect example. We wear tefillin because it says in Exodus 13, it says twice over there, and then it says further in Deuteronomy that we have to wrap on ourselves, right? We have to put a sign on our heart, lios al yadecha. We have to put a sign on our heart and a remembrance or a totofos, whatever totofos means. We have to put a remembrance on in between our eyes. So we know it's in between our eyes, and we have to put a sign on our chest. The question is, how do you make these signs? How do you wear these signs? How do you do them? So therefore, there was a law for Moses that came down, that was passed down from generation to generation to generation, and it was finally written in the Talmud. And the Talmud wrote exactly what these tefillin look like, how they're made, what they should look like, how they're knotted, how they're strapped, etc., etc. Now, lots of other customs came after that, but the bottom line is that's the third part of the oral Torah. Certain things that Moses passed down that were for the experts per se. It wasn't for the masses. The masses didn't need to know how to make tefillin. You go to an expert gives you tefillin. But it was passed down, and the rabbis knew it. And it was passed down from rabbis to rabbis and generation to generation, et cetera, of how to do these things. Certain laws that are only passed down that they weren't. It was a little bit. You know how they say in essays, this is out of the scope. So it's out of the scope of the written Torah. Torah mentioned wearing tefillin, exactly how you make tefillin. It wasn't going to start going into all these instructions. That's not what the Torah was about. So therefore, that was passed down. All right, that's what the Talmud is. I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but there we go. That was someone asked. Oh, yeah, Talmud is important. That's right. We got a comment. Talmud was important. That's right. We need the Talmud. Talmud helps out. Oh, there's actually a fourth thing the Talmud gives. There's actually a fourth, very, very, very important. And there's actually another reason why the Talmud is called the oral law. The Talmud actually is called oral because during a lot of the Roman occupation, it wasn't allowed to be written down. Queen of Palestine, we don't read the Talmud, its laws. I'm sorry. Is there more to that text? I only see part of that text. I wish I'm not sure if the text have been cut off. Okay, what do I think about Jesus? Nice guy, I guess. Jesus was a rabbi, and the Talmud tells us that he was a rabbi, and he was in the Galilee. And do you know that there was a rabbi called Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, Yossi from the Galil? The Galilee is north of Israel, of Israel, right? It's north of up there from of Israel, and it's in the northern territories and up by the Kinneret. And that's where I think he spent most of his life, as I understand. I understand he was born in the south, but he spent most of his life up in the north. And like all places. So before I answer your question, let me get back to it. I don't want to start going on 55 tangents. There's an amazing other thing about the oral Torah. It's called the Talmud is called the oral law because it was passed down orally a lot because it was not allowed to be written down because the Romans had edicts against religion. After they destroyed the temple and they evicted most of the Jews out of Israel, and then they called the place Palestine, Capitolina Palestina. They called it that because they wanted to stick a knife in the gut of all the Jews because they mispronounced the word Philistine. And they knew that in the Bible, in the Torah, the Philistines have always been a fork in our sides. So they named it, they tried to name it like Philistine land to try to like really put it to the Jews. And they mispronounce it Palestina. And don't go on about history about how who decided in 1964 to reincorporate that name as a people. But anyway, it wasn't written down. So how did the rabbis convey teaching? They conveyed it through what's called a Agadata, through stories. The best way to convey things orally to children and to other people is with stories. People remember stories, right? There's an old joke. The joke is a rabbi could repeat a sermon every week. but he only could repeat a joke once a year because people remember the jokes. And when people remember the right, so therefore, and the stories. So the rabbis would create what's called a Gadata, right? This was the Sanhedrin that moved to Yavna. They created a Gadata, and in those stories are lessons. So there are lessons in those stories, and that also why the Talmud's called the oral law, because a lot of the stories were given orally, obviously. Then, of course, it was written down. Obviously, it was written down at one point. First the Mishnah, and then the rest of the Talmud. But a lot of it was given through stories. That's why we have a lot of stories in the Talmud. What's called a Gadata, a lot of stories, because it had to be conveyed from generation to generation. We weren't allowed to write down the Torah. Now, what's interesting is that while the Romans controlled Judea, and they didn't allow Torah learning there. The great Torah center of the time also was in Babylon. Babylon, right? Babylon, yeah, Babylon. Babylon. They also had yeshivas there. They also had schools, and they also were developing the law. So that's why we have the Jerusalem Talmud. The Talmud was developed originally from the Mishnah, and the original Jerusalem Talmud was developed in Judea. Then the scholars in Babylon took over, and they added to it, and they added a lot of the stories, and they added some more laws, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's why we have the Babylonian Talmud. Just a short little snippet. So what do I believe in? What do Jews believe in Jesus? So let me tell you what the Talmud says about Jesus, because I had never met the man. He was a man, and he was a rabbi. And there were two Jesuses. There was a Jesus that lived in Nazareth at the time of the Second Temple, and there was also a Jesus that was Rabbi Yehudim Brachia's Talmud, who lived in the 200s, in the mid to late 200s, in the 3rd century. So there were two Jesuses. I assume you're talking about the Jesus of Nazareth. Although I did learn somewhere, and maybe like I have to look further into this. I think Christians also believe that there were two Jesuses. I'm not really sure about that. I know the Talmud has a second Jesus, but anyway, I think there's a concept of a second Jesus. Anyway, so the Jesus that was the main Jesus, the one who the Gospels wrote about, I will say like this. I don't read the New Testament because, I don't read Greek. It's translated out of translation. I will say this, though. I did find Matthew in the original Hebrew, because Matthew was originally the only gospel written in Hebrew. And Matthew, whose name was Matisyahu, and he had two disciples of his own. You call him Bartholomew, and you call him one of the Simons. Bartholomew, I think his name was Levi, and Simon's name was Shimon. I know there were a couple of Simons, but he wrote the first gospel. I think someone said Mark might have been the first gospel, but I think it makes sense Matthew wrote the first gospel. And he wrote it in Hebrew. And do you know that in his gospel, as you probably do know, it doesn't mention that Jesus was God. John, don't talk to me about John. John. I know about John. Okay, everyone quotes me John all day long. Even Matthew doesn't say that Jesus was God. And Matthew actually proves Jesus is not God. Because Matthew says that Jesus was tempted by the devil. How could God be tempted by the devil? Matthew says Jesus hungered in the desert 40 days and 40 nights. How could a God hunger? Matthew said Jesus suffered. How could a God suffer? And if you want to tell me all these things, that God talked to his father, talking to himself, God didn't really suffer, it was a spiritual, blah, 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 then why doesn't God just come out as a man? Like, listen, there's so many angels that happen, right? Angels spoke to Abraham. Angels wrestled with Jacob. Angels were messengers to Lot. An angel went before Moses. And angel appeared to the entire people as a pillar of a cloud, a pillar of fire. And the angel appeared to Manoah and his wife. Angel. There's so many physical manifestations of a spiritual being. If there was God, and we know God can't do anything, so then God could come as a man. Why didn't God just come as a man? Why did God have to be born, have to have dirty diapers, have to suckle at his mother's tits, breasts, have to be fed, have to throw tantrums, have to, learn how to speak and all the other stuff. Like, anyway, whatever. This is beyond the scope, beyond the scope, beyond the scope, beyond the scope. Okay, I'm going off on a tangent. Sorry. The problem is the brain goes too fast. The brain works too fast sometimes. Yo, doofus with the Palestinian flags. Yeah, go Palestine. We love killing babies. Yeah, the more Jews that die, the better. Yeah. Give it up, doofus face. We all know you're an American who never went to Palestine. You never ever opened up a book in your life, okay? All you're doing is flag. Yeah, okay? Old news, boy, old news. Jews are still around. They've been around for 2,000 years. They ain't going anywhere. Get a grip. Anyway, where were we? Jesus. Let's talk about the Talmud says about Jesus. Talmud says Jesus was a rabbi. The Talmud says Jesus was very, very liberal in his approach. And in some aspects, he might have been what's called someone who rejects the Torah, because when his followers would call him something special, like not God, but a prophet, when his followers would say that he was a prophet, he wouldn't correct them. And that's what the rabbis had a problem with. They had two problems. One is he said that he was the king of the Jews. However, their records that they kept in Babylon did not connect. They disagreed. They didn't agree that he necessarily was from a direct line from David, or the firstborn son of the firstborn son of the firstborn son of the firstborn son, etc., from David. Remember, you have to understand the whole point of the whole beginning of Matthew. How do I kick this guy out? This guy is getting annoying with his colorful flags. Is there a way to kick somebody out of here? Yeah, here we go. How do I block this guy? Boom. Okay, done. I'm sick and tired of seeing this stupid flag. Okay, next guy with the flag. All right. Anyway. Yeah, so there was a dispute whether or not he actually was the firstborn son of the firstborn son of the firstborn son of David. And let's say even if he was, let's say he was the king, he was the king, to be king. So he was the Messiah, right? Messiah means the person who's to be. Palestine is free, doofus. It's called Israel. Go there. You can do whatever you want there. Free rights for everybody. Go be gay in Gaza. See how that helps you, okay? Go be Jewish in Gaza. See how that helps you, okay? Go be a Christian in Gaza. Go see how that helps you, okay? Yeah, sure. So yeah, anyway. Ultimately, the Jews did not kill him. We know that, and there's proof of that, because number one is the rule is that Jews have, after a judgment of death, they give 40 days before they carry out the penalty. The problem is, if his trial, like even your gospels say, was on Friday, and he was decreed on Friday, and then he was put on the cross that same day. So that is not a Jewish way of doing things. Lila Tov, MT Media Palabra. Thanks so much for joining. What is going on here? Sorry. So that didn't give 40 days. So that would not give the Jews 40 days to because decrees were never carried out before 40 days. Also, they never leave anyone hanging overnight. Also, they don't kill by cross. That's not how they kill people. They don't hang people on the cross. The Romans did that. Matter of fact, Jesus wasn't unique. Jesus wasn't the only one killed by the cross. Jesus was one of thousands upon thousands of people killed by the Romans on a cross. The Romans crucified a lot of people. I mean, there's nothing unique about dying on a cross. The Romans. Thank you so much, the guy who's Yaakov on the drums. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, anyway, so what else to say about him? So some people say, let's get this straight. Some people say that the Talmud says two things. One, it says that Jesus is burning excrement. No. No. Because if you read the Talmud correctly, and as a matter of fact, I can pull it up for you guys if you want, it says that Onkelos, who was the nephew or brother-in-law of Titus, and Titus is the general who destroyed Judea, before he converted to Judaism, he had a dream. And he dreamt that he was pulling up different people from the past and asking them questions about Judaism. And one person he pulled up was a man. So some people interpret that that man was Jesus. But then again, Christians love saying everything is Jesus because they'll find any verse in the Old Testament, in the Torah, that will, and they'll say, oh, that applies to Jesus. God created the universe for Jesus. Oh, man was created in the Garden of Eden. That was for Jesus. Oh, an angel wrestled with Jacob. That was Jesus. Jesus is everywhere. Listen, hey, you can believe what you want to believe. I'm not saying you can't believe it. Go ahead and believe it. But I just think you see Jesus at too many places. So that man that it quotes in the Gemara, in the Talmud, it's not necessarily Jesus. Let's say, even if it was Jesus, this is how the Talmud goes. The Talmud says Onkelos had this dream, and he said that he saw that this man was burning in his own excrement. And why was that? Because there's a verse that has in Proverbs, and the verse says that a person who studies hard, he gets weakened. So a play on words of Tigra is Yigra, and Yigra means in his own bowels. And what loosens in your own bowels? So this is a real stretch. It says Tigra, but then they say Tigra is like Yigra, and Yigra means loosens the bowels, and loosens the bowels means having excrement, and therefore it must be that he's burning an excrement. I mean, that's like, wow, that's like juggling some sort of linguistic thing, okay? And this is, by the way, a non-Jew saying this. This was Onkelos before he converted. So this is a non-Jew saying it. Then there is another piece of Talmud that specifically says you can't say that, and it doesn't talk about Jesus. It talks about this verse in Proverbs, and it says that if a person studies hard, he'll have lots of bowel movements. Why? Because of this verse in Yigra. And it says, don't read it Yigra. The word says Tigra. And what does it mean? It means a person should learn until he's tired out from his studies. So the bottom line is, the rabbinic ordinance actually was that he tires out from his studies, which is misheard by a non-Jew who misheard the word, who interpreted it wrong, who interpreted a rabbinic decree wrong, who applied it to a person we don't even know is Jesus. So, wow, that was a stretch. The second thing people say that it said Jesus was a bastard. The bottom line is the Talmud did not say Jesus is a bastard. The Talmud just says he was not a virgin birth. So if there was a claim that Jesus was born of some sort of spirit and not a father, that's what the Talmud has a problem with. The Talmud has a big problem with that. And I will say, it's very interesting. The Jerusalem Talmud doesn't talk about him at all. The Jerusalem Talmud that was written before the Nicaea Council doesn't talk about him. Because I don't think before the Nicaea Council anyone thought that Jesus was God. I think before the Nicaea Council they just thought Jesus was a prophet or probably fit to be king of Israel. Anyway, that's my own assumptions. That's what Talmud says. I don't know more. You guys probably know much more than me. You read many more Gospels. You've learned this more in your church, and you've lived with this your whole life. You probably know a lot more than I do. I only know what the Talmud says, and that's it. That's all I can respond. I know history says. I know that Philo said nothing about Jesus. I know Josephus said nothing about Jesus. And don't start quoting that one little section of Josephus because everyone says almost everyone who's anyone in the scholar says that was added on later. You even have the Roman historian. The only thing that he says about Jesus was that there was a rabbi in the north of Judea who had lots of followers who was crucified by the Romans. So at least, maybe at the very least, he existed in real life, which I'm not denying. I'm just saying there's no outside evidence whatsoever that they'll prove to me anything otherwise. Again, I'm sure your Gospels are great, and you can believe what you want to believe, and that's it. I only can answer what I can answer. Anyway, I went on a tangent, and I want to see what else. Whoa. Do I hate Christians in the West? I don't hate Christians in the West. First of all, I don't hate Christians at all. As a matter of fact, I happen to like Christians because Christians also are like us. See, I disagree with a lot of people who say that Christianity and Judaism have a different God. I agree. I think we have the same God. I just think you also have a touch of idol worship in your practice, which, by the way, is nothing wrong. I mean, that's what the Protestants had. That's the Protestants' problem had with the Catholics, right? The Protestants and the Catholics didn't see eye to eye, right? The Protestants thought that the Catholics were doing idol worship and having all these idols in there. I don't hate the Christians at all, not necessarily. Matter of fact, I love having friends that are Christians, and I love debating with Christians. I love even not debating. I love just having discussions with Christians because I think that we both agree on the original Testament, right, the Torah, and we agree that there's one God, right? We disagree how that one God manifests, obviously, but we agree on that. The West, I definitely don't hate the West. Why would I hate the West? Where would you get that in your head that I hate the West? That's a very strange thing to say. You're allowed to disagree with someone, not hate them. As a matter of fact, the real question is why do Catholics and why do the Christians hate the Jews so much? Because of a disagreement of religion, we've been put through pogroms. We've been put through. We've been put through pogroms. We've been put through inquisitions. We've been put through blood libels. We've been put through, all these things. So we're not the ones that hate, okay? Jews are not the ones that are a problem in the world, okay? I like to say this, okay? Let's do a tally. All the Christian people that were killed by the Jews because of the Talmud or the Torah teaching. Bing! Now let's count all the Jews that were killed by the Christians because of the church. Millions upon millions. So let's get that straight. All right. Let's not say like it's even. Christianity has over 1 billion people in the world to follow it. Judaism, we have basically 15 million Jews in the world, and not even every one of those follow the Torah. Okay. So let's not start saying that Jews are like the oppressors over here. We're some sort of worldly oppressors. All right. Let's get those anti-Semitic tropes out. Okay. Very good. Victim card overdue, little bro. You're right. Because Jews never play the victim card. You know what we do? When we're faced with adversity, when we're expelled and we're not allowed to go to university and we can't hold government jobs and we can't hold certain jobs and then we have the pogroms and we have Holocaust and everything else. You know what we do? We brush ourselves off and move on. I'm not going to say what other famous people who are still crying about slavery all these years later, okay? Jews don't cry about the past. We brush ourselves off and we move forward. Here I am. I'm here. You want to ask me a question? I'm here. Let's make this peaceful. Let's make this something of love, as the Christians like to say, and let's move on, and that's it. Anyway, do I hate Muslims? No, I don't hate Muslims. I don't like what Muslims do. I think that Muslims, for a long time in history, have been very good to the Jews. I would say, comparing how Jews fared under Muslim rule and under Christian rule, comparatively in history, I think that the Jews in Muslim rule actually did a little bit better. You don't hear about a Holocaust with the Muslims, and you don't hear about inquisitions with the Muslims or pogroms. So, comparative basis, Muslims treated us as second-class citizens, sure, but they let us be in our own little ghettos and let us thrive in a way. So, I can't blame Muslims for that. I think I have a problem with the Middle Eastern Arab. I have a problem with the Jordanians, and I have a problem with the Egyptians, and I have a problem with the Syrians, and I have a problem with the Lebanese. Not the current ones these days, but you're talking about when all of a sudden you have 22 Arab nations with 1 billion people, and then one little sliver of land is given by the United Nations legally by the United Nations. The world voted to give the Jews a sliver of land. The Jews, who are, by the way, living on the land free and clear, they didn't just come. It's not like all of a sudden said, wipe out the Arabs and let's put the Jews there. The Jews were migrating there, and they were legally buying property. They were legally building. They built Tel Aviv out of a desert. Okay, they built parts of Jerusalem that were desert. The Arabs living in the old city. Jews built the entire everything outside the old city in Jerusalem. The Jews built. It was a desert. Okay, Jews came to a desert place and they put their sycamore trees there. They sucked up the wasteland. They built in the south. They built in the north. They built outside of the old city. They built Tel Aviv. They were living in their own little places, and the world voted. The world voted to give the Jews a place to stay. And the second they declared independence, 7 Arab armies attacked. And the Jordanians and the Egyptians said, everybody attacked this new state. And by the way, all those Arabs that are in the way, move out, because after we kill all the Jews, we'll give you back the land and more. So there were 750,000 Arabs that, oh, great, we're going to get more land. So they went to Jordan, they went to Egypt and said, okay, you promised us that you're going to give us land after you win the war. Great, we're going to sit it out. We're going to clear the way so you can bulldoze over all the little Jews, these people who just survived the Holocaust 3 years earlier. And guess what? You lost somehow by some miracle. By God's grace, the Jews won the war. And now all of a sudden the Jordanians are like, uh-oh. And the Egyptians are like, uh-oh, where do we put these people? We told them we're going to have a place to put them, but the Jews won. Whoopsies. That was a faux pas. Ooh, I have a good idea. Let's rewrite history. Let's call it the Nakba. The Jews did it. The Jews are the ones who killed all these people. These Jews who are outnumbered 3-1, who just survived the Holocaust, who didn't have any weapons, they're the ones who did the Nakba. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what do the Jordanians and the Egyptians do? They put them in refugee camps. And then what happened? In 1964, an Egyptian, not even a guy who ever was in the area, an Egyptian named Yasser Arafat woke up and said, I know, I'm going to get rich off their backs. I'm going to create what's called the PLO. And the PLO is created. What's the PLO? The Palestinian Liberation Organization. We're going to liberate the Palestinians. And Palestine was born. Congratulations. Out of nowhere, we have a Palestine people all of a sudden. Woo! Where did that come from? Who knows? Light of matchup. You know what? Everyone hates the Jews. Might as well go with it. There are 24 Arab nations at this point. There are over 1 billion Arabs in the world. They control all the oil. What do the Jews control? Nada. Okay, so at the bottom line is, if we're going to side with somebody, might as well side with the Arabs, because they're much more powerful, they're much more numerous, and they have all the oil. Woo! Little history lesson for everybody. Whew, I'm done. Let's get to some questions. Listen, Christ could be your savior. There's no question Christ could be your savior. Let me explain the difference between a Jew and a Christian. Let me explain something that people don't understand about Judaism and Christianity. We're not at odds with each other. We don't want you to keep the Torah, and we're not asking you to make us keep a New Testament. Let me explain. Moses got the Torah on Sinai, and he had a covenant with God. That was Moses, and that was Abraham's children. Abraham's son Isaac, Abraham's son Jacob, and the 12 tribes. They had a covenant with God because they came out of Egypt, and they had a covenant of God, and they got the Torah. Gentiles did not get this gift. All over the Old Testament, it says the Jewish people are chosen. Okay, we're chosen. We're chosen for whatever. Bottom line is, we're chosen that we have the Torah. Nothing there says that the Gentiles have to keep the Torah. We're not trying to spread out. We don't see Jewish missionaries. There are no Jewish missionaries. We don't go around the world convincing people to keep the Torah. Why? Because we don't want the Gentiles to keep the Torah. It's not for you. It's for us. It was our covenant. We suffered in Egypt for it. We get it. Okay? What did Jesus do? Or at least, actually, what did Paul do? Really, it's Paul. But let's say Jesus and his followers, what did the apostles do? And Paul, what did they do? What was the net sum game of that whole business? As the temple's about to be destroyed, as the Roman occupation got more and more severe, Jesus and his followers decided there has to be a way for Judaism to survive. But Judaism's not going to survive because I don't see how they're going to survive this occupation with the Romans. Therefore, I will create a new covenant with the Gentiles of the world. And that is the New Testament. And Jesus spread the New Testament to the Gentiles. And for the most part, almost all the early Christians were Gentiles. I mean, there were some Jewish early Christians, sure. The 12 apostles were obviously Jewish. But when they spread it out in Rome, and when they spread it out in Armenia, right, when that was going on, it wasn't just for Jews, it was also for Gentiles. And Gentiles don't have the covenant to keep Moses' Torah. They don't. They never have. Therefore, a new religion was born. So good. Christianity, keep your New Testament. Jews, we have our Torah. We can live side by side. There's room in the world for both of us. I mean, we're tiny. So there's room for us anywhere, really. And really, if you would just get the Arabs off our back, we would probably all move to Israel and leave the rest of the world alone. Really. I mean, think about it. You want to get the world rid of Jews, tell the Arabs to back off. And really, every Jew in America and in Europe would see that it's safe to move there. They would move there. The problem is, with missiles going over, American Jews and European Jews feel a little more comfortable in those other countries. Anyway, what does a goy mean? Goy means nation. That's it. The Jews are also goy. We're a goy. We're called a goy kadosh. We're called a holy nation by the Torah. Goy just means nation. So when a Jew says goy now in Yiddish means a Gentile. That's it. In Yiddish, in Hebrew, it means a nation. But in Yiddish, it came to mean a Gentile. It means someone who's a guy who's just a regular nation person. That's it. It means a Gentile. It does not mean anything worse than that. There are worse things that we call the people. We call them idol worshippers. We call them worshippers of the stars. We call them Nachri really just also means Gentile. So that's basically it's different words. Idol worshipper, worship of the stars, and Gentile. Goy just means Gentile. Why are we? I don't know. If you think you're considered animals, that's your problem. Jews are not considered goyim animals. The most tolerant people in the world are Jews. I mean, look at liberal Jews. Liberal Jews are pro-Palestinian. You can't get more tolerant than that. You can't get more tolerant than a secular Jew who will defend a Palestinian who's trying to behead babies in Judaism. I mean, in Israel. I got to catch up. There's a lot of questions coming here. Let's see. Is the Pope recognized by other religions? As a religious leader, he is. I know that the former chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Lau, was very close with John Paul, with Pope John Paul. Very, very close with him. They had a lot of correspondence because you have the chief rabbi of Israel, and then you have the chief head of the Catholic Church. There's a lot to talk about. And I will say this: Jews actually do have what's called a Kars Tov. We have thanks to the Pope during World War II because the Pope actually did save Jews during World War II. In Italy, he saved about 2/3 of the Italian Jewish population after the Italian invasion. So there is actually, he saved thousands of Jews. He hid them in homes of bishops, in homes of cardinals, homes of priests. He did hide Jews. Are you a Zionist? So the answer is yes, I'm a Zionist. But Zionism is not an ugly word. The truth is, Zionism, what is Zion? Zion is Zion. What is Zion? Zion means the greater part of Jerusalem. In the Torah, when it says Yerushalayim, when it says Jerusalem, it means the city of David. So you have Ir David, which is the southern slope of the Temple Mount, and you have the Temple Mount up there. That is Yerushalayim. That was the original city of Yerushalayim. Zion is the rest of the city that was built around the rest of the old city, and now it's suburbs and everything else. That is what Zion is. Why we called Zionists? The reason is because we pray 3 times a day that we want to see Zion built up. We want to see our glorious city built up, and we also want to return to our glorious city because our glorious city contained our temple. So Zionism is any person who considers Judea or Israel their rightful home, and that's what a Zionist really is. Zionist really is any religious Jew except for Reform. The Reform movement of Judaism, for some reason, decided that they no longer want any rights to Israel, which is fine. The rest of Judaism, conservative, secular, non-binary, whatever, Orthodox, they consider obviously our homeland, and Judaism actually is not so much an ethno-religion as is an ethno-nationality. We are from a family, but we're also tied to a land. We are we are tied to that land, and we can't break that bond. That's just the way it is. You know, the whole entire Torah is about our bonds to that land, and all the punishments in the Torah are all about expelling from the land, and all the promises in Torah are about returning to the land. So we are really, the Torah is a constitution of sorts. It's really our constitution, and we're living in exile, sort of like the Polish government lived in exile during World War II, and the French government lived in exile during World War II. When and other governments are lived in exile, and then eventually, they were able to return after only a few years, because the World War II was only 7 years, whereas to us it's been a little bit longer, and we had a sort of a comeback a little bit to our homeland. We're clearly not there yet, so that's what we is. So that's what Zionism is. And Zionism doesn't mean anything more than a Jew wanting to go back to our homeland. One second, I want to see what he says. Let's see. Let's catch up on stuff. Why haven't you made a sacrifice in 2,000 years? Well, we don't have a temple, and the Torah is very clear. Without a temple, we can't make a sacrifice. You can't make a sacrifice without a temple. No temple, no sacrifice. Since you have Palestinian flags there, when you question, I would ask you if you could kindly move your Dome of the Rock to another location, and then we could build a temple, and we'll do sacrifice again, okay? Then why does Talmud say goys are animals in human form? The Talmud does not say goyim are animals in human form. With the Talmud, no. First of all, the Talmud is so allegorical in so many places. It calls a wife a cow. Our wives cows. I mean, it said that Adam had sex with angels. I mean, there are so many allegorical things that are in the Talmud. You can't just. It's not like you pick a one line and say, "Oh, I heard someone say that Gentiles are animals in the Talmud." No, to the certain fact that you want to read that in context, we can read that portion in context. But is it actually equating Gentiles to animals? No, absolutely not. And by the way, like I said before, if you want to nitpick on what any book says, no, how they say in movies, no animals were harmed in making this movie. No Gentile was ever harmed in the making of the Talmud. Okay. If the Talmud wanted to talk about Gentiles like the Romans, who destroyed the homeland, who destroyed the Holy Temple, who killed 1 million people by the sword, with starvation and sieges, and the Talmud has the chutzpah to say something negative about the Romans, about a Gentile Roman people, don't go there, okay? Don't start saying, "Oh well, the Talmud says that the Gentiles who destroyed them and killed them and destroyed their temple and starved them and massacred them and genocided them. Oh, poor the Talmud." No goyim have ever been harmed in the writing of the Talmud, okay, or the reading of the Talmud or the learning of the Talmud. So let's get past that. Are you an Orthodox rabbi? Yes, I am an Orthodox rabbi. I've been ordained by a bezdin of Orthodox rabbis, 3 Orthodox rabbis who have synagogues and yeshiva and schools of their own. I was ordained by for a 6-year program, etc., etc. Let's see. It's a political movement. Well, Zionism did become a political movement, you're right, in a way, when the secular Jews in Europe wanted to return to the homeland and they couldn't stand being in exile anymore. So it did become a political movement, but it's based on the religious notions. So again, we're an ethno-nation. Returning to your homeland is as political as an American saying, "I just want to go back to America after vacation." I mean, it's not more political than that. Oh my gosh, you wrote this 1,000 times. Okay, let's see. Anyway, always wonder why, if your Sefer hasn't come, have you stopped writing scripture? Okay, scripture, first of all, was written well before the Savior didn't come. Scripture was stopped basically written in the beginning of the Second Temple. Remember, the Apocrypha is not considered canon by the Torah. So since the Apocrypha is not considered canon, we haven't really written scripture in a very long time. Eventually there will be a book written when the Messiah comes, the true Messiah comes, and we are safe in our homeland. There will be another book added, a final book added to the Torah, and that will be the book of Geula, the book of redemption. So hopefully that will. Rabbi, are McChicken's kosher? I don't know. I would have to see the process of how you make the chicken see the kosher. Technically, chickens are kosher. They just have to be slaughtered correctly. There's a certain way of slaughtering a chicken, the humane way. It can't just be, beheaded and crushed, and that's not the way it's done. The blood has to be drained, right? You have to drain all the blood out of it. You have to make sure, there's no blood left in the meat. It has to be salted. So that has to be done. Technically, you could make a kosher recipe of chickens, I'm sure. However, and I would say this, based on my Gentile friends, or they tell me what is in the McChicken, the nuggets, I think it's probably not only is it kosher, it might even be what's called pariv, meaning it's no meat inside. I mean, I'm joking, but it's like no meat inside. It's basically all filler. So if it's all filler, basically, it's not even I'm joking. It's not kosher, but because there is some chicken in it. But it's basically, as the joke is, that it's all filler. So if it's all filler, it's not even meat. Build a tabernacle. There is actually an institute in Israel that's building. It's called the Mechon Mikdash, and they're building every single one of the vestments for the holy temple that we built. So yeah, so we're ready. The second that Dome of the Rock moves, bam, a building will go up very shortly. Is the Hebrew in the Torah still Hebrew spoken today? Yes and no. It's ancient Hebrew. There are some grammatical changes. Some word changes, like for instance, we don't say vayomar anymore. We don't put the yud in there, the yah sound. We don't put vayomar. We say things anymore. We that has been left out. That's more of a. It's sort of comparing like, is the old English English? In other words, saying, "You art thou, thus be unto thee." Is that considered English? So yes, it's English, but it's not the really way people speak anymore. So ancient Hebrew is Hebrew, and so modern Hebrew is Hebrew, but it's a new way of speaking. It's not exactly the way it's spoken back then. Favorite Talmud joke? Ooh, that's a good one. I gotta think out. There are doozies, but right off the top of my head, man, I'm so bad at thinking of jokes off the top of my head. Let me think about that, and then I gotta put some out there. I'll maybe make a video of that, of some good Talmud jokes. Let's see. The idea of sacrificing your life to purity to place utter nonsense. I agree. I don't know that the third temple will have sacrifice anymore. I think we no longer have the stomach for that. I think the third temple will probably not have sacrifice. The rule is that really, if someone wanted to eat meat, there is a provision in Deuteronomy allows you to eat meat without a temple, but the best thing really to do is to offer certain parts of it that are non-kosher, like the innards, and the rest of it you eat. So there are what's called shlamim sacrifices, Thanksgiving sacrifices, and there are peace offerings. Basically, 90% of that was eaten by the person who gave it, and only the innards and some of the parts that were not kosher, some of the organs, that was put on to the altar. So it's possible third temples will be like that also. You want to eat meat, you want to bring a sacrifice to the Lord, so slaughter it, put the parts that you can in any way onto the altar. The rest of you eat, enjoy. Ten Commandments, Shabbat, eat clean, eat kosher, follow Yeshua. What's the 10? How is following Yeshua part of the commandments? I don't understand that question. Is it true that Jews believe that all the humans were born to serve them? No, absolutely not. Really. If we did ever believe that, that has been long gone from our minds. Now we just want to live in peace a little bit in a small corner of the world. And teach our children in peace. Definitely don't think anyone's here to serve us. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, Scripture is very clear. At the time of Messiah, Gentiles are going to come worship at our temple, and their offerings will be, they'll worship and they'll offer. They're not going to be slaves to us, for sure not. They're going to be all part of, under one peaceful rule. Does our God believe in killing people? No, our God does not believe in killing people. Our God says that murder is wrong. It's one of the 10 Commandments. The only provision allowing for killing people was cleaning out the land of Canaan and all defense of our land. Otherwise, there's no ability whatsoever to kill someone except in self-defense. Obviously, self-defense is the only exception. But if you're not talking about self-defense, talking about a proactive killing of people. No, we don't kill people. We don't try to do mission. We're not missionaries. We don't try to convert people. We don't, we're not trying to take over the world. No, none of that stuff. Your house was promised to me 2,000 years ago. Yeah, my house was promised to you. Okay, so give me my temple. I'll give you my house, I guess. Is Hebrew in the Torah still Hebrew spoken? We did that already. You will know. Well, let's see. Let's get to some more recent questions. Okay, that was backed up a little bit. Okay, why are Ashkenazis white? That's a great question. Let's talk about that. That's a great question. Why are Ashkenazis white? And why are Sephardi Jews, for the most part, dark? It has a lot to do with two things. It has a lot to do with where we grew up in, our climate. Anyone who goes anywhere will adapt to a climate. So the Sephardi Jews who grew up in much more tropical climates, they are darker. Ashkenazi Jews who grew up in Europe, like Europeans, are a lot lighter. Now, Jews were never black or white. We were Middle Eastern. Middle Eastern, we have certain features. For instance, Semitic nose is not necessarily, Italians have a much bigger prominent nose than Jews do. And most likely, they shared the Mediterranean genes that the Romans did, and the Mediterranean area probably had people with prominent noses, and that's what it was. You see Arabs have prominent noses. It's a characteristic we share with the area. Skin tone changes slightly. I mean, there are darker and lighter, but we weren't black or white. We were from the Middle East, which was neither really. A lot of it could have also had to do with mixing of, unfortunately, the blood. I mean, when Jews were subject under the thumb of foreign nations, unfortunately, their blood gets into, you could use your imagination how, and that could happen. So there we go. Do you personally see any real connection between Judaism and the Catholic Church? As far as religions in the world, yeah, I think now there's the state of Israel. There's a connection because it's important for there to be connection between the state of Israel, Judaism, and the Jews in Israel, and then the Catholic Church. It's important for religions to see eye to eye. There should be one for the Muslims also. Every major religion should really be at the table. Actually, there probably should be a council of religions to deal with certain things. I think the council of religions could probably deal with political questions probably better than politicians can. So maybe we should create such a thing. What is a yarmulke? I assume you're talking about this, a yarmulke? If you're talking about a yarmulke, I can only imagine what a yarmulke is. If you're talking about a yarmulke is a Yiddish word. It just means cap. It's a covering. Jews didn't always cover their hair, but there are laws that when we pray and we worship, we should cover our hair. And the custom developed over time that Jews shouldn't really walk four cubits in public without covering his head. So now we just wear the yarmulke. The yarmulke became a custom to wear all the time, even indoors. How do you feel about war? I would say that I would be a religious objector to war. If there was ever a war not to be drafted for, I'll be a religious objector. I couldn't fight in a war. I don't think there's any cause worth fighting for. How could a political cause ever be worth fighting for? Maybe in like World War II when you're trying to save a people from a genocide. Clearly the war in Israel, saving themselves from being attacked all the time, from all the missiles and from their neighbors. Yes, that. But I can't imagine, let's say, being in Europe or being in America or being anywhere else in the world and it's like being part of a political war. I couldn't understand that. When do you think the third temple will be built? Tomorrow. When it will actually be built? Don't know. Again, truthfully, what is a yarmulke? Did I answer your question about a yarmulke? A yarmulke, is that what you're trying to say? The cap that I wear on my head? I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Genocide happening right now in Palestine. I agree, yes. The Palestinian people are trying to genocide the Israeli people, so that is very bad. And if they would just stop with their rockets and stop with the October 7th invasions and stop everything, then everyone will live in peace. I mean, there's never been a single war that Israel started. Israel has not started a single war. Yes, Six-Day War was a preemptive strike, but there was 5 armies that had all their armaments right on their border. Okay, there's not been a single war ever started by Israel. If the neighbors would put down their weapons, Israel would exist forever. If Israel put down the weapons, Israel would not exist for another day. Arabs will not let the Jews go to any holy area. Arabs will not let the Jews go to their temple. Arabs not let the Jews go to the Kotel. They will close the Kotel. They will close the cave of our fathers. They will close all holy sites to Jews. They will kick Jews out of the land so fast. And yet 2 million Arabs live comfortably as citizens in Israel. Did I ever read Chaim Potak's Chosen? Yes, I did. I happen to love that book, The Chosen. It's a really, really good book. What's the spiritual reason Jews wear the kippah? Again, spiritual reason is to remind us that God is above. It reminds, it shows us that we're subject to someone else. So therefore, it's a personal symbol. That and our tzitzis. We wear our tzitzis, our strings, also to remind us that God is with us. What's the second highest authority? Talmud. The Talmud will be the second highest authority, obviously. Obviously, Talmud will be the second highest authority in Judaism. Any thought of the Book of Enoch? I don't know what the Book of Enoch is. I heard of it. I've definitely heard. On my TikTok, I get all the Christians, so I definitely heard of the Book of Enoch, and people talk about that. I don't know what it is. I never read it. It might be. Is that one of the apocrypha? I don't know. I don't know about it. I never read it. Why do Jewish people try to stay away from other people? It seems they try not. No, Jewish people don't try to stay away. We try to live amongst ourselves. It's interesting. The Gentiles put us in ghettos for thousands of years in Europe and also in the Muslim countries. Jews, anyway, will stay in ghettos. There's two major reasons why Jews stay together. One is our temple. We do not drive on Sabbath. So if we don't drive on the Sabbath, we need to be able to have a walking distance to our synagogue. So we build a synagogue. We tend to live around our synagogue. That's number one. That's the most practical, easy reason why Jews live together is because live in a group because we have to have walking distance to our synagogue. The second thing is we enjoy Jewish neighbors. It's much more peaceful to live among Jewish neighbors who our kids could play with and our kids could learn from, and who aren't going to bother us and aren't going to kidnap us, and for the most part, and this is actually true, Jewish neighborhoods are safer. The crime rate in Jewish neighborhoods is so much lower than so many other neighborhoods. The safest neighborhoods in America, some of them are predominantly Jewish, and I think probably Europe is probably the same. So that's practical reasons to live in a Jewish neighborhood. When we live in Gentile countries, we're not. So it's clearly, if we didn't want to live among Gentiles, we'd all move to Israel. So living among Gentiles is not a problem, and many Jews actually live in Manhattan. They live among Gentiles. They live in all places among Gentiles. We work among Gentiles. We work with Gentiles. There's no problem there. It just, for practical purposes, living in a quote unquote Jewish neighborhood is just easier. The Talmud is not as high as Torah. No, there's something called biblical laws and there's Talmudic laws. The violation of a biblical law is much higher than violating the Talmudic law. That's for sure. However, the Talmud, like I said before, does talk about what the biblical laws are. Not every biblical law is apparent in the Torah itself. You can't just look at the Torah and know every law because it says it in the verse. Sometimes you have to do exegesis and you have to cross-reference and use context, and more laws come out. And those are also biblical laws. They're just not necessarily apparent, but the proper learning, they're there. You're in a hotel for Passover. Should my Jewish friends do a Seder? Of course, they should do a Seder, not for you. The Jewish people should do a Seder wherever they are. How could a Jew miss a Seder, Passover Seder? It's one of the most important things. Parmesan cheese, a condiment? Funny. Probably. Why not? More Parmesan. You can never get enough Parmesan, right? Definitely, the Jews have a Seder no matter where they are in the world on Passover. A lot of details of the Torah are in the Talmud. That's correct. Yes, of course. Palestine, or is it not real? Palestine is a territory. Talking about the Palestinian people? I'm not sure what the question was. I'm Jewish yourself. Hello, Elmo. Elmo's an interesting name for a Jew. Elmo. I'm Elmo. Elmo loves to learn Torah. How should one study Talmud? Do not study a Talmud by reading it yourself. If you never study Talmud yourself, get a partner who is an Orthodox person who's read the Talmud before, because like anything else, you have to be introduced to how the Talmud talks, what the translation means, how it's translated, and you have to understand how the flow, the ebb and flow goes in the Talmud. Just picking up an English translation, it could be a terrible one, it could be, a good one or a bad one. You don't know, what slant it is, and even if it's a little, let's say a little one, the Talmud is very allegorical. It's very important. If you can go to learn Talmud, definitely get what's called the Chavrusa. Bye. Thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate you joining on. Thanks for summing up. Galatians 3:16 means nothing to me. Don't know what that means. I never read Galatians. Okay, Seder Olam is there is a controversy if there would not if there was a reduction of the temple era to 490 years to fit in, right? You're trying to say because it fits in with Daniel. Daniel talks about a 490 year period. So the question is whether or not they reduced the time. So the answer is yes and no, because you have to take all sources and you have to see how the years line up. So I can't answer this on one, what's called a regalachas. I definitely believe that there might be years missing in the chronology. I understand the 490 years, and all that, and the missing years. Yes, I've seen both sides of that debate. I already discussed what I think of Jesus. No problems with Jesus. Never did anything to me personally. I don't necessarily like his followers all that well. Some of his followers. I don't like what his followers did for much of history to my people. He himself, I'm sure, wouldn't, as far as I understand, never hurt anybody. I don't know why his followers decided to act the way they did. It boggles the mind how someone who's so peaceful could create a religion that was so vitriolic to cousins, basically. We weren't related necessarily, but spiritual cousins. I am an Orthodox rabbi, yes. What do you think about Reform, Reconstructionist Judaism? So I don't know much about Reconstructionist Judaism to define it for me. That term is out there. Reform I know about. The problem with Reform is that you don't believe in the connection to the land of Israel. The Reform movement was created in Germany as a way of saying that Jews give up the right of the land of Israel and now we do what we want. Then what's the point? You want to say that Torah is not for you and it's hard to keep it. I get it. No one's perfect and it's very hard to keep the entire Torah. I agree. And you want to say that you don't want to keep the rabbinical laws because the rabbis made up rabbinical laws. Understand that also. I can understand all this pressure, but to create a movement to say that basically we're going to be secular in all but name and also give the right to the land of Israel, I don't buy it. I don't understand it. Palestine is free, so leave. It's not free yet. Palestine will be free soon, hopefully, when the Gazans lay down their arms and when all the other Arab nations lay down their arms and Palestine, which is called Israel, will be free. And then hopefully maybe, and first of all, you don't know. I could be there right now. You don't know. I might be sitting in Israel right now. You don't know. They have no explanation. This land is Palestinian land. I don't know what that means. You're an Orthodox rabbi. Yeah, Esther. Okay, let's see. Faith equals trust. The Roman Catholic Church is a church. Jesus Christ standard. Great. Excellent. Joshua, hope not even close. I don't know what that means. I remember going to Chabad when I was in the 20s. We were reading the Tanya. Oh, the Tanya. Yeah, the Tanya. Chabad love the Tanya. Do me a favor. If you're having a first taste of Judaism, don't do the Tanya, okay? They're going to try to grab you with that spiritual stuff, the feel-good stuff. Oh, the spirit leaves your body at night and it returns by day. And every mitzvah you do creates good in the world and feel good, feel good, feel good, feel good. The problem is, the second it stops feeling good, you're not going to lose anything. I prefer the way of learning substance. If you want to really know what God wants, start by Bereshis Bara Elokim. In the beginning, God created time, matter, and space. Let's start from there. Let's go forward. You can look at my channel. Actually, my channel. I started a new series. I put it out there, and it's called both on YouTube and both on TikTok. It's called "Is the Torah Real?" I start going through the Torah, showing how not only is the Torah real, but science and archaeology, and all these theories actually support it. As a matter of fact, the Torah, is corroborated by science and archaeology and history and et cetera, et cetera. Learn substance. I love substance. Substance is much more better for me. Okay, if you have a question, just ask your question. Don't say, "Hey, I have a question." You gotta say your question so I can read your question. And how many times have you been to Epstein's Island? Epstein was a Jew. Very sad. It's true. He was Jewish. He was very sad. And I tell you that, unfortunately, I did not go to his island because I would have converted him and he would never have sinned. Not converted him. I would have made him religious and he would never have sinned and no one would have been hurt. Very, very sad what happened with that whole Epstein situation. I appreciate that today, writer. No disrespect meant here. Do you believe the number was 6 million? I will say personally, I believe it because I actually went through the records. I went down to Yad Vashem. I went down to other archives. I've gone through the deaths that the Nazis kept. They kept amazing records through the camps, and the number of deaths that they kept, and there were no overlapping in deaths because you can't die in two different camps. The people that died in the ghettos, the people that died in the camps, it probably definitely hit 6 million for sure. No question about it. But that's only, by the way, during the World War II. You're not talking about what the Germans did and what the Polish people did in the years leading up to World War II, from 1933 to 1939, Kristallnacht, for an example. Those are not included in the 6 million. The Polish people, they did their own pogroms when Hitler came to power because they felt empowered by the fact that someone was so anti-Semitic. So yeah, the numbers. Listen, it's a tough number. But to my surprise, no, it's actually right there. If you look at Deuteronomy 28, it's right there. Deuteronomy 28 is clear. It's clear. You look in, chapters in Isaiah, 50, I think it's chapter 53, 54 in Isaiah, talks about how the Jewish people are going to be destroyed in this world. They're going to be backed on by all the other nations. We are going to be the punching bag of the nations. It's there in Torah. So I believe it. It's there. It's been prophesied, which means the Messiah will come. Jewish Almanac said there was a Jewish increase in Jewish population in 1930 to 1948. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. Not really. No, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, there was about 17 million Jews in 1933, and then there were only about 9 million Jews in 1948, I think, when they were taking a census, something like that, 1945, whatever. Now there's about 15 and a half, almost 16 million Jews in the world. So, no, I don't understand how 18 million, 19 million Jews, 17 or 18 million Jews, 1933 turned to 15 million Jews in 2025. Makes no sense without a Holocaust. Who is the person described in Psalms 53? I think you mean Isaiah 53. Is that what you're talking about? I think you're talking about Isaiah 53. Who is the person described there? And it's not a person, it is the nation of Israel, spoken to as the Torah often speaks about in the first person masculine. I have a small start at jesus.org. Been busy with Muggle affairs. Okay, good. Be busy with Muggle affairs. It's true. Of the many 50 million Jews, about half, at least half, are not religious. So there's probably only about, I'll say, 5-7 million Orthodox Jews in the world. Not many of us. Go around it by not naming the nation, but it's crimes. The nation that created by theft. So okay, Psalm 53. Who are you talking about in Psalm 53? I don't know. You have to remind me who's in Psalm 53. Let's look up Psalm 53, and then we'll discuss it. Let's see, Psalm 53. I'm sorry, there are a lot of Psalms. I don't know them all by number by heart. Psalm 53 is not written about a man. It's written about them as a nation. It's a lot of plurals in there. It's not really sure what you're referring to. Maybe we have a different Psalm 53. No, believe it or not, just by throwing in a chapter number, I don't know every single chapter number by heart, okay? No, I don't know. Ooh, Psalm 53, Psalm 53, Psalm 59. What does it say in Job 2? Job 2, verse 3. What does it say? I don't know every single number, verse, and every single thing by heart. Okay? That's not part of my ordained. They didn't say, okay, part of your test to be a rabbi is, okay, Exodus 24:4. What does it say? Read it. That's, by the way, an amazing thing, Chidon Tanakh, that some people actually do know. And there's a test in Israel, and it's unbelievable. And I really, really commend the kids for really memorizing every single verse and number by heart in the entire Talmud, entire Torah. I don't. I know that I read the entire Torah many times. Clearly, obviously, the 5 books of Moses more than others, but I've gone through, obviously, the major portions of the writings and the prophets. But no, to know exactly, like, bam, Psalm 53, not there yet. Okay, so therefore, yeah, a lot of times the Jews have rejected God, and a lot of times the Jews have been punished for it, and the Jews have been exiled. Whoopsies. Ever read the yes, Devil's Arithmetic. Love that book. It's a novel, but it is so touching. It's a short story, Devil Arithmetic. Those who don't know, it was actually made into a movie also, by the way, starring Kirsten Dunst. And I forgot there was another actress. I forgot who's in it. But am I saying? I think it was Kirsten Dunst. Yeah, another actress in it. And first of all, the book. I read the book first, and then oh my gosh, it is so moving. It's basically about a girl who's by a Passover Seder by her family, and they're talking about the past, and she sees numbers on the arm of one of her grandparents, and she's not interested in. She doesn't want to be interested. She doesn't like it, and all of a sudden she falls asleep because of too much wine at the Seder. And she has this dream that all of a sudden she's in the ghetto and she's seeing a cousin get married, and then that same day the Nazis come, round them up, put them in a camp. Oh my gosh, so moving, so touching. It's a very, very powerful story. I definitely recommend it for anyone who wants to read it's a very short story. If you want to get an introduction to the Holocaust, it's a novel, but I think it rings true, and it's a very, very short story also. It's only about like 50 pages. Fantastic. Okay, bro, just answer and I'll leave. What are you trying to ask? You still asking about Psalm 53? Are we still on the Psalm 53 thing? What's it? Rocco. What did Rocco say? Rocco. Mitzitza Peh. Why is that a thing? Okay, good question. Because herpes wasn't always a thing. That's why. There has to be blood that comes out. There has to be what's called blood of Mila. Well, Christians understand it very well. Christians understand blood and sacrifice. In the Torah, we understand that the blood was the most important part of the sacrifice, right? After any offering was made, the blood was actually put onto the altar, and if without the blood, the Talmud says there was no forgiveness. So there has to be blood in a milah. Circumcision has to come with blood. So to get the blood going, that was a process to get it going. It's very innocuous. Listen, these days people make it out to be a huge thing, and you know what? A lot of the mohels who do it now use straws and other or gauze and other ways to get the blood out. Much cleaner methods. Obviously, we know a lot more about herpes and germs and all that stuff. But it was a thing. It was a thing, and it's part of a process. And it's not as crazy as Mila. Mila itself is a crazy thing, but you know what? It's part and parcel, and even non-religious Jews do it, and it's important. And it's vital to to being part of God's sacred convent. It's a part of a convent, and that's it. And besides, the ladies love it. Everyone knows the ladies love it. The ladies love a circumcised. Everyone knows that. We're adults here. We could talk real. Okay, Mikhail Ben Yarel. I know you see what I'm typing. What have you typed before? I'm trying to scroll back to see what I missed. There's a lot of people coming on here. So I'm trying to see if I missed you. I have receipts, sir. You have receipts of what? What do you have receipts of? Okay, I see you typing, but I don't see what you have receipts of. You have receipts. What do you have receipts of? Michal Yosef. Oh, Jewish Almanac. Oh, you have receipts. Okay, you have receipts. Good. All right, go ahead. Enjoy your receipts. Can you explain what the difference is between Talmud and Torah? Yes, the Torah is the Bible. Is the 5 books of Moses, the prophets, and the writings. And the Talmud was basically, well, let's put it this way. You have anyone who's in America knows there's constitutional law and then there's case law. There's a constitution written by the forefathers, and that was, the articles of the Constitution with the Bill of Rights. And then you have what's called case law. Then two people got to court and argued over what the Constitution means. So in a way, Talmud is sort of like that. You have the Torah, and then you have rabbis arguing over what words in the Torah mean, in simple form. Plus, it also adds stories. It also adds lessons. It also talks a little bit about history. It also passes down, some unique laws, rabbinical laws that were made to protect people from violating the Torah's laws. That's sort of how I can explain it. Maybe, but it's done as is Mila done to take away a person's manhood and make him humble? I don't think so, because it's done as a baby, and we grow up never knowing it actually happens. So If it happened when we were 13, yeah, there we go. Lesson learned. You're not a man. Hashem's the man. Yeah, God's the man, and you're not a man, and put you down. But when it's happening in an 8-year-old baby, and then the baby grows up and never knows difference, I don't know how that lesson is learned. Where is the Ark of the Covenant? But if I knew, believe me, I'll tell you. Everyone knows. Isn't it in the archive somewhere? Right? Doesn't the army have some sort of huge archives, and it was stuffed in there? Right? You never saw Raiders of the Lost Ark? It's over there. It's stuffed in them. They found it and they put it in the archives. Kidding. Clearly, if we knew what the Ark was, that would be amazing. The Torah says you can't have a land. Incorrect. Incorrect. Just because the Torah says that we were exiled from the land doesn't mean we can have a land. As a matter of fact, do you know that there'd never been in a time where Jews had not been in the land? After the first exile, there still were Jews in the land, and Jews actually had a Jewish governor, right? We all know his name is Gedaliah ben Ahikam, right? Gedaliah, everyone knows about him, and he was actually Jewish governor in between the first and second exile. After the second exile, do you know that Jews were still there? They were in Yavna, and they had a yeshiva in Yavna, and then for centuries they were writing the Mishnah, the Talmud there. So what do you mean Jews can have the land? Jews were never fully exiled from the land. There's never been a time since the Jews entered the land after coming up from Egypt where Jews have not been in that land. Never a single day. The Torah says we lose the rights to the land, which we have. We no longer govern the land, but we are still there, and it's still ours, and it's going to be returned to us. Can I explain why LL Cool J is a spokesman for Pfizer, or what happened to Gene Hackman? I do not know what happened to Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman was a Jew, very, very sad, loved him as an actor. Very strange that they were found dead several days later, apparently. L. Cool J, don't know much about him. I think he's also a pretty decent actor. I think he's in a shark movie or something that I saw once. Pretty decent actor. Anyway, spokesman for Pfizer. Since COVID, Pfizer has lost all rights to call themselves a respectable company. Pfizer and Moderna, those companies, they've lost all rights to call themselves any sort of respectful pharmaceutical company. Okay. They have been in exile from every land they lived. Well, that's what being chosen people is. We've been in exile from every land we lived because that's what being chosen people lived. God promised us that if we've been exiled from our own land, we will not be able to rest. Can you imagine if we were able to rest in a land for too long? Then we'd forget about our land of Israel. God moves us from place to place to remind us, hello, you got to return to Israel. Hello, you got to earn the Messiah. Palestine is Palestine. I can't call you Alex if your name is Rebecca. Okay. And what was Palestine named before it was called Palestine? When did the Ottoman Empire call it Palestine? Did the Byzantines call it Palestine? And even if it was called Palestine, let's say later on, and the Romans call it, so according to your own logic, there is no Palestine because the Romans called it Capitolina Palestina after they conquered Judea. So I can't call you Alex if your name is Susan. I can't call you Palestine if your name was Judea. And I can't call you Judea if your name was the land of Israel. Whoopsies. That logic sort of falls out. Do you believe what Pirkei the Rabbi Eliezer chapter 24 says about Noah's sons? That's something for we got to make a video about that. There's a lot of things that say about about and you have to read it, you have to go through exactly what it says and what it doesn't say before we get all excited. Why are you God chosen people? I don't know. You know what? Of all we've been through, sometimes you want to give that title back. What happened? I'll give you actually a real answer. To give you a real answer why the Jews are the chosen people, I'll give you the real answer. Okay, if we believe the Torah is true, because we believe God is real. We can't be chosen people if God's not real, right? We can't be chosen by God if God is not real. So just hold up for the questions for a second because I'm going to just explain this and then we can have back to the questions. So we believe God is real, which means we believe God created time, space, and matter. Bereshit bara Elokim, Eshamayim v'Haaretz, first verse in the Torah. God created everything, which means God owns the world. God created earth. God owns the world. God wanted to give his Torah to people that earned it. Who earned it? So the people who earned it is Shem. Shem earned it. Shem, the oldest son of Noah, earned it. He was the oldest of Noah. Noah was a tzaddik. He was righteous. He saved the world, or at least he saved that portion of the world. See, I learned it that it was a portion of the world they had to save. I also learned it that Adam was the first spiritual man of spirit created, but mankind existed on Earth through evolution. Whatever, there's a whole way. I actually have a video on that. You can check it out. But anyway, Noah basically saved mankind in that area. And of his sons was Shem. So therefore, Shem deserved to get God's law. But it wasn't ripe yet. And for some reason, it wasn't ripe until God said it was a certain time. So who was the oldest of Shem? If you go down through Shem from generation to generation, his oldest, you end up coming to Terach, and then you come to Abraham. Abraham was the oldest of Terah, who was the oldest of his father, the oldest going back all the way to Shem. So therefore, he deserved the Torah. He also deserved the land of Israel. Why? Because Canaan was cursed. And because Canaan was cursed by Noah, and Noah said, anything that belongs to Canaan belongs to Shem. Who was the oldest of Shem? Again, by right, was Abraham. Therefore, Abraham is the one who got the land. And Abraham is the one who got the promises. Not only had the land, but he had the land with God's law. However, God also said, you have to live for 400 years, 4 generations, in a land that's not yours, and you're going to be subjugated to them. So, short story long, we have it ended up being in the form of the Exodus, of the bondage in Egypt. Then there was the Exodus, and then they came up and they conquered the land. Are there easier ways of doing it? Sure. And we wish sometimes there would have been easier ways, because I feel there should have been an easier way where if they acted differently toward their brother Joseph, it's very possible they could have just sort of inherited the land by virtue of people, of just settling the land. As a matter of fact, I feel like in a way it would have been better if the League of Nations and the UN never voted for Israel, and in a way Jewish people just moved there and expanded naturally, bought more land and procreated and gained more territory and eventually just filled up the land naturally. I think it would have been a lot more peaceful. But hey, no harm in making the same mistake twice, right? But here we are. History has a way of coming back to bite us in the arse sometimes. Anyway, so that is why the Jews are the chosen people, in a short story. And God said, it comes with responsibility. Great power comes great responsibility, like being the world's knocking stone. Anyway, let's see. Do I follow the Talmud? Absolutely. Orthodox rabbi, follow the Talmud. Yes. What does Talmud say about Jesus? I have a video about that, but basically not what you think it does. A lot less harmful than you think, that's for sure. The term Semitic refers to a collection of languages that the Palestinians are part. No, they're not. Absolutely not. I agree with you. Semitic is a form of ancient languages. The only one that survives is Hebrew, by the way. Arabic is not Semitic. Don't start saying Arabic is Semitic. Arabic is a language that came much more. Arabic has very little to do with Aramaic. It sounds similar, but it's nothing to do with Aramaic. It's a land for the people of Arabia. Arabia was actually in Saudi Arabia, that area. Semitic actually was more Mesopotamia, which is Babylon, and the Fertile Crescent, which is north, not south, does not include Saudi Arabia. The Fertile Crescent does not include Saudi Arabia at all. The Fertile Crescent is Babylonia, parts of Syria, parts of Lebanon, down into the Israel, and then of course a little bit into Egypt. That was the Fertile Crescent. That was Mesopotamia. That's where the Semites were, not in Arabia. The Arabs come from Arabia. Arabic comes from Arabia. Where do Palestinian people come from? Let me explain something to you if you don't get it by now. The Arabs are the greatest conquerors this world has ever seen. They came from a small area in Saudi Arabia, and they conquered the entire Middle East, Southern Africa, Northern Africa, Southern Europe. They went all the way up through Spain. Okay, they almost got to Rome, and then there had to be crusades to stop them. All right, so the biggest conquerors on this planet has always been the Arabs and the under the Muslim regime. And even the Palestinian people, let's talk numbers, okay? Because between 1918 and 1933, the Arab population in Palestine, which was called, and the British mandated Palestine, tripled. Tripled. It's not like they were all there already. In 1918, there was 1/3 of the amount of Arabs there. They all ran there because it was promised to the Jews. The second that land was promised by the League of Nations to the Jews, the Arabs ran there and they tripled their numbers. They're not they're not indigenous to the Palestine. You know that the Ramban, Rav Nachmanides, came in the 1200s to Palestine, to Jerusalem, the old city, and there's been a presence in the old city of Jews since the 1200s to 1948, when after the war they had to actually leave the old city. That is what's called the people who were indigenous, not people who in 1918, when a League of Nations said we're going to give a land to the Jewish people, all of a sudden every Arab nation started moving their undesirables into the area so they could repopulate it. Let's rewrite history, why don't we? What's up with the sacred name Yeshua? Yeshua just means salvation. Remember Yeshua ben Nun, Moses' protege? His name was Yeshua. We have a lot of people named Yeshua in the Jewish community. Yeshua is a name. Yeshua means a person should have salvation. Okay. Jesus was not the only one who's ever named Yeshua, nor will he the last. As a matter of fact, I think according to prophecy, his name was supposed to be Emmanuel, or people tell me also his name was supposed to be Great Advisor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, right? Don't people say that verse refers to Jesus also, which it doesn't, but they say that also. So why was his name Yeshua? Where does it say that his name should be Yeshua? His name should have been Emmanuel. He was misnamed. That's what I think. Matthew's amazing. Matthew reads such a draw from the Torah that it quotes so many verses from the Torah. Why it missed that one, I don't understand. Anyway, why don't even know you're a rabbi? I am a rabbi. How do I not know I'm a rabbi? What do you believe? Who do you believe is the only one that can control the winds and the waters? Obviously, God, right? God can, and God through God, and then God through his angels, I guess. Miracles do happen, and miracles are done through God, always through God. And if a person could do, like, they say the Baal Shem Tov, right? They had a rabbi in the 1700s who said that he was connected to the Zohar, connected to mysticism, and he had such powers, he's able to basically put a kerchief on the water and he would step on it and he floated across the water. The Talmud talks about, a case where there was a widow who complained to a rabbi, so he gave her one seed, and then the next day, after she planted it, an entire crop of wheat grew, even though there was a famine where, that's basically, where Jack and the Beanstalk came from. Elisha did miracles. Elisha was able to cure Nama. Elisha was able to bring the child back to life. Elisha was able to fill up the woman's widow's jug full of oil, and it didn't everlasting stop. So there were miracles that were done through people. People could do miracles, but clearly, obviously, it all comes from God. Do I have any opinions for people that are out of the ordinary people of your faith? I don't know what that means, but I will say this. If you want a lesson of faith, if that's what you mean, I'll give you a lesson of faith. Seeing is not believing. Believing is seeing. When you see something you don't believe. I'll tell you a little quick little story. Moses was sent by God to free the people. When Moses went to the people, the Torah says in Exodus 6 that they didn't believe him. And they said, why? Because they were so busy with the burdens. Moses, earlier, when it had the conversation, because the Torah over there is a little bit out of order, it goes back and forth. Moses goes to God. He returns to God. He came into Egypt. The people didn't believe him. He returns to God. And Moses tells God, the people don't believe me. Why? Because the verse says, they say to you, Moses, no, you saw God, and therefore we cannot believe you. So you would say, someone who saw God should be, if they believe that he saw God, they should believe him, right? Clearly he was sent by God if he saw God. The answer is no. They had faith because they were living under bondage, and they had faith that God would get them out. Moses had no faith because Moses saw God. When you see something, you can no longer believe in it. You can no longer have faith in it. Therefore, therefore he was lacking in that, and they felt they had nothing in common with him because he was someone who did not have faith. They had faith, and they wanted someone of faith to take him out. So that's when he had to get a lesson, and God showed him how to have faith, and he had faith. And then by the crossing of the Red Sea, finally, it says they finally believed in him. How did they finally believe in him? Because Moses' faith. Moses knew instead of praying to God, I got to go straight through the Sea of Reeds and go through, and that's what he did. And he proved that he was a man of faith, even though he talked to God. So seeing is not believing. Believing is seeing. When you believe in something, that's when you really. Then your eyes are open. Then you actually see things. That's where faith comes in. Does loving a just God support what's going on in Palestine? Answer is yes, because you know what? There is evil in the world. And I'm not sure which way you're talking about, whether you're saying Israel is causing a genocide or the Palestinians are causing a genocide, because there's two ways of looking at it. All right? And only one way is right. You know which way I think. But the bottom line is, there is evil in the world because God said there could be evil in the world. Because without free choice, there wouldn't be evil, right? Was there a just God what Hitler did? Absolutely yes, because sin and other circumstances makes evil in the world, and God gives people free choice to act. Yes, God intervenes at certain points and at certain times. That's why Jews are still around, no matter how much there are massacres. Jews still exist and still are around because we'll never be wiped out completely. The bottom line is, yes, sometimes we get punched in the face and we get injured. We got to get back up. That's part of life. There's a lot of reasons why there's tragedy in the world. Because without tragedy, you would never know happiness. If everything was great and everyone was good to each other all the time, we would never know what good times and happiness are. You would never be able to build yourself up. You'd never be able to persevere. You'd never be able to learn from things. So of course there could be a just God with evil in the world. As a matter of fact, God predicts it in His Torah. If the Torah is God's word, He tells it all the time. There's going to be evil in the world. So therefore, if it's predicted, obviously, it's something that would come true. So Jesus got love thy neighbor from the Torah. It's right there in Leviticus. It says you must love your fellow like yourself, and that's, I know, the great thing that Jesus preached. And actually, we actually have a rabbi, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva preached also that the greatest part of the Torah, the greatest general rule of the Torah, is love thy neighbor like yourself. If we all did that, I think the world would be a much better place. There'd be less war, right? I believe very much in that song that Lennon did. Imagine, the world would be so much better without politics, that war, religion separating us, all that stuff. Everyone could be quiet to worship the way they want to worship, everyone to live the way they want to live, go forward, etc. The sad thing is, if you really get to know Jews put so much good in the world. It's unbelievable. The amount of charity that Jews do, the amount of help thy neighbor that Jews do in their own community, and even in the world, because secular Jews do in the world. Every time there's a hurricane, there's a natural disaster in the world, Israel sends aid. Israel is the first one to send aid and to send people and medics and support anywhere in the world, whether it could be in Haiti, whether it could be it was in the United States in the South, in New Orleans, whether it was any major Houston hurricanes, fires, anywhere in the world there's ever a disaster. Taiwan, Israel's the first one to send aid. If really the world would, instead of trying to hate on Jews, would just get to know Jews and appreciate Jews, it's such a. Anyway, from a rabbi, what else do you expect a rabbi to say? Proverbs 34. Be very careful in reading Proverbs. Nothing in Proverbs is what it seems. In matter of fact, that's the word Proverbs. It's in the name. Okay, so there we go. You take Proverbs is a poem. Take your lesson out of it as you'd like. Does God support it? Are you asking if God supports tragedy and pain and the war? The war? Is that you're asking? I'm not sure if you're asking if God supports the war that's going on in Israel. Clearly, God would rather October 7th never happening. And then if October 7th never happened, there would be no war. So I think that's probably best. Let's leave it at that. Who is Yala? Who's Yalda Both? I don't know who that is. Yalda Both. Who's that? wasn't actually as divine or wise as his justification make him out to be. Who is? I've never heard of that. Is that a secular name? I'm sorry, I don't know all the secular names for all the people in the Torah. If that's what you're referring to, Yalda Ba'oth, a malevolent god. Why are you talking to me about a malevolent god? I don't know who. I don't know. I don't know who this is. I never heard of this. Some Greek god was not as. He's not. Yeah. Anyway. Good for you. Yeshua is Lord and God. He is Yeshua, the Messiah you've all been waiting for. Really? Where is he? Where is he? Yeah, I'm still waiting. Hey, even you're waiting. Because I tell you what I'm not waiting for. I was not waiting for the Romans to turn Catholic and follow him and then to do everything they did to the Jews for 1900 for 1200 years. So definitely wasn't waiting for that. And I guess we're still waiting. Are you waiting? Are you waiting for him also? Because where is he? Where is the King of Israel? Where is the King? Where is he? Why don't I believe in Jesus? What do you mean I don't believe in Jesus? I believe in Jesus was a real person? Sure. I guess it's enough, historical context to say that he was a real person. What else should I believe in Jesus of? What else? Are you saying Jesus more than a person? Are you saying is Jesus more than the existence of a person I should believe in? I was a Gentile, not even a Jew. I called upon him and he showed up in my life. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am what? He's okay. You know what? I can check out Jesus.org because I've heard all the rock solid proof you want all day long. All right. Always try to give things a chance. But the bottom line is, let's say you're right and I believe in Jesus. What has Jesus done? Blood libels, pogroms, Holocaust, Inquisition, all in the name of Jesus, baby. All in the name of Jesus. So show me the plowshares that have been, the swords that have been the plowshare that have been, banged into plowshares, and show me the lion that's sleeping with the lamb, and show me where the Jews have sovereignty over the state of Israel, because even now they don't only have sovereignty of the state of Israel. I mean, Jews can't even go to the Temple Mount without police escort. Jews can't even go to certain parts of the Cave of Our Fathers. Jews can't even go into Jericho. Jericho's a holy city, and then Jews can't even go there. So how much do rabbis make in a year? We rake it in, baby. Well, it all depends what type of rabbi you are. If you're the head of a yeshiva, head of a synagogue, how big of a rabbi you are, it all depends. Usually the salaries aren't great, maybe enough to make a living, but we try to subsidize as we can. Anyway, Trinity is so fake. It's so false, and it's heartbreaking, and they try to change who he was. That's true. At least my being. I like reading. I'll tell you this. I'll admit this. I'll say this quietly because I don't want the rabbis to hear. I enjoyed reading Matthew. I thought Matthew was a good read. I thought there was a lot of good stuff in there. I read it in the Hebrew, the original Hebrew that it was written in, and you know what? It was very interesting. It was basically like the Old Testament being wrapped up in a new story, which was beautiful. And you have this guy who's born, and he's basically from the line of Judea. Again, I don't think in the Hebrew it doesn't read. In the Hebrew, it doesn't read that he was born a virgin. I know in the English they translated that, but in the Hebrew it doesn't read that he was born a virgin. But he was born to Joseph, who was from the Davidic line, and he was born to a very righteous woman. And he grew up, and he was tempted, and he saved off temptation, and he taught a lot of interesting things. But a lot of what he taught is also taught in the Talmud in a way. The love thy neighbor, be good unto yourself. Some things he said, like people are better than the law. No one's above the law. He spoke about how the rabbis took the law too seriously. You can never take the law too seriously. Maybe certain disagreements they had, but in a way, he was nice little rabbi, and up in the north, and he taught a lot of people, gave people hope. And then he had a very sad death, and that was it. Anyway, that was my take from Matthew. Have you not read all the prophets said about Jews and how they'll be exiled? No, of course I did. I read all those prophets. And all the prophets always end up saying the Jews will return. You can't only read the first few chapters of the prophets. They all say the Jews will return. Every single one talks about Ezekiel, Nehemiah, Ezra, they, they all talk about how the Jews are coming back to the land. I agree with you. The Holocaust was terrible, and God gave us free will, and God allowed evil in the world, and the Holocaust happened. Now, clearly, God orchestrated the Holocaust, and the question is, whoa, good God could orchestrate the Holocaust? I don't know. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 28. It's right there. So God predicted the Holocaust, and there we go. The Holocaust happened. So why? We don't know. You have to realize this is the perspective the Jews have. Jews have a different. I think Jews have a different perspective on God a little bit than Christians. In a couple of ways. Number one is the Christians preach how God is a loving God. God is a loving God. The Torah doesn't really say God is a loving God. God keeps saying you have to love Him. Okay, the God wants you to love Him because God gave you life and God gave you everything. So therefore, since God gave you everything, you have to give it back. Okay, why God needs it? That's a different story. But the bottom line is this whole thing about a loving God and God is all love and peace. There's not really many verses in Torah talk about that. There's like one in Deuteronomy, but for the most part, it's always you have to love God. Okay. And number two is we understand that God created everything, and therefore it's God's world. So therefore, God can do whatever He wants with the world. He created me, so therefore I have no say in how my life should go. God does. Now we believe in a benevolent God. We believe in a good God. Ki tov, ki liolam chaza, because forever God's kindness is forever, and God is always good. But what is good? What is good is what's good for God. God made us for a godly purpose. God is good for the godly purpose. What that purpose is, you can take a lifetime to let us know. You can't just look at it and say, oh, the world is terrible and everything's bad and therefore God. No, they don't blame everything on God. God makes bad, God makes good, right? He allows God, He also allows good. He picks you up also and He saves you. Sure, He makes you sick, but He also heals you. It's both ways. Sometimes man makes you sick and God saves you. So a lot of times it's man that's actually doing things to you, and God is the one who's actually protecting you. Without God's intervention, the world would be so much worse than it actually is. And has the world been so terrible? I mean, look at the Bible: Sodom, Gomorrah. Look at the war, the five kings, the four kings. Look at Egypt and its bondage. On and on and on. You can see you see how there was evil in the world. Nineveh was an evil city. You look at Haman and what he tried to do, eradicate it. There's always been evil in the world, and God allows evil in the world to exist for some reason. God controls the world, made the world, owns the world. We can't say what God can do with the world. It's not for us to say, because we're only here by His grace, so to speak. So therefore, we have instruction, and that instruction is Torah. And Torah says this is how you live your life, and this is what God wants for you. Why? What we're going to get at the end of it? Maybe it's going to be a reward in a world to come. Maybe our souls are going to find grace. If it's maybe we're going to enter the land of Israel and live in peace. Maybe we'll get a better salary. Maybe we'll have nachas, great from our children, grace from our children. Maybe we'll. We don't know exactly. The thing is, we just have to go by what's there and do the best we can. I cannot concisely answer a question. I'll tell you what, Pipla Puppy. Ask me a concise question and I will answer a concise question. Why isn't Netanyahu wanted by the ICC for war crimes? Israel guilty. Israel's not guilty. Oh, first of all, Netanyahu has his own problems in Israel. Okay, that's number one. That's why Netanyahu has to hold on to power, because he knows that one second he loses power, he has problems with the courts in Israel himself. Okay, that's a different story. That's Israeli politics. The ICC is a very anti-Semitic organization, and it's run by many, many, many Arab nations who don't like Jews. Surprise, surprise. So why is the ICC on him? You know what? Let me ask you a question. Why are the Arabs allowed to commit a genocide in Yemen? Why are the Arabs allowed to commit a genocide in Syria? Why are the Arabs allowed to do whatever they want, wherever they want, all over the place? No one protests. No one cares. No one says anything. The UN is silent. You know, October 7th happened. There's no condemnation on Palestine, on the Palestinian people. They killed the Arabs kill themselves. No one cares. What's going on by China? What's going on in that side of the world? All, you know, genocides that are going on there. No one cares. No one don't protest. Don't say anything. Israel defends itself from rockets. ICC has to put out arrest warrants. Blah 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 blah. Was that concise enough for you? I am not a Litvak. I am from Germany. I am a proud German descendant. My family goes 10 generations up in Germany. Germany was the original Ashkenazi thought. The greatest scholars came out of Germany. We have Rashi. We have Nachmanides. We have I don't know why I can't think of something. It's late at night here, but Rabbi Yaakov ben Usher, known as the Baal Turim. We have the Rama. We have Rabbi Yaakov Emden. We have Rabbi Ettlinger. We had Rabbi Hirsch, Rabbi Schwab. We had the greatest rabbis came for generations came out of Germany. Was Rashi a convert? No, of course not. Rashi was not a convert. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. Rashi was actually a very wealthy man. His father was a dealer. He became a dealer. What's amazing about Rashi is that not only was he a scholar, but he's able to afford it. He's able to afford, as from a young age, to be sent to yeshiva, which a lot of people were not able to afford. Instead of working, he was sent to learn. And not only that, after that, he also was able to travel, able to learn from different people, and he had a great library. He had access. The main thing you have to say when Rashi was around the 1100s, in the late 1000s or early 1100s, is the fact that there was not a lot of access to books. Books were written by hand, and there was not a lot of access to them. But Rashi, because of his wealth, because of his travels, had a lot of access to books, and his great access to books allowed him to give his rabbi's commentary on the Talmud and his own and the Midrashic commentary on the Torah. Let's see what you want to say about the ICC again. I see the UN 9% of the other global community spoke about Israel. Wow, the world's against Israel. Boo-hoo. Let me ask you a question. Read what you wrote back. ICC, the UN, 9% of the other global countries spoke about against Israel. The whole world is anti-Semitic. Let me ask you a question. Jews are less than 1% of the population of the world. They have one sliver of a country that is amongst 24 Arab nations. And you still have a problem with Israel more than any other country in the world. You don't find that amazing? You don't find that amazing that people who make up less than 1% of the people are on your mind, digging into your brain, making you not sleep at night because you hate them so much? You ever think about that for a second? Give yourself a rest. Shalom, Daniel folks. No, the hostages not all free. The hostages have to get back. We have to get the hostages back. They were innocent. They're not combatants. They're not people who were involved in a war. They have to give. It's time already. And people that were killed in such terrible ways, the Bibas family and everyone else that was the hostages that were killed in such horrible, horrific ways. Ugh. Shalom ubracha, Yassi. That 1% has how much? You know what? Come. Talk to a Jew, find out what the Jewish community is about, and then you figure it out. Maybe because we are so small that we have a little bit of blessing to survive a little bit in this world. Stop being freaking jealous of us. You know, we don't make up the 1% of the world, okay? There are a lot. Bezos is not Jewish, okay? Elon Musk is not Jewish, okay? The Arab sheiks who are billionaires are not Jewish, okay? Trump is not Jewish. All the greatest, richest people in the world are not Jewish. Yes, there are wealthy Jews, thank God. So don't start saying how Jews have money, they're so small, they must have stolen it, and they kill people. You know, it's so old and so tired. Give it up already. Give it up already with your tired tropes. It's so year 950, okay? I mean, it's so old. It's like year 950. Give it up already. Do you observe the Jerusalem? Oh, I love the Jerusalem Talmud. I am a Jerusalem Talmud scholar. As a matter of fact, I try to do what's called Jerusalem Talmud Yomi. I try to do a page a day of Jerusalem Talmud. I did a whole bunch of videos, about 60 of them on my channel. I am a little bit behind. I got sick and then I got behind. I have to finish them and upload them on. I love the Jerusalem Talmud. Love it. Yes, you could ask a Shaila. Joe, Megan, just ask her. Don't ask if you can ask a Shaila. Ask one. Ask a Shaila. Don't just ask if you can ask a Shaila. Ask one. Do you think they're Jewish? User, well, I don't know. That wasn't for me. Can I? Yes, Joe, Meg, please ask a Shaila. What do you think of Ethiopian Jews? I think they're Jews. Somehow, it's interesting. I'll tell you how history works. It's very funny how history works. Somehow, they have a lot of Jewish customs. And somehow they don't have other Jews. In other words, they don't have a lot of Talmudic customs. So therefore, if you would say that at one point in history, some Jew wandered into Africa and converted them all, why don't they know anything about Talmudic Judaism? Talmudic Judaism started in the Second Temple era, and according to our faith and Torah, we know that 10 tribes were exiled before the first exile. Therefore, in that situation, oh, 1 second. Sorry, I got to plug my phone in, otherwise it's going to die. All right. Yeah, I'm about to die. 1 second. There we go. I have power. I have the power. Ah, He-Man. Love He-Man. Okay, do I think... No! I plugged it in! Oh, well. Sorry.